Well, hello and welcome along to our second attempt to take on the mighty mountain. We've got a title fight that's coming down to the wire, and this is a fitting venue, if ever I've seen one, to see a title decider. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be frantic. It's potentially going to be quite a bit nerve-wracking as well, as we take you through round number 5, the season finale of the Coach Dave Super Sprint. I'm Lewis McGlade. Alongside me, unfortunately, isn't one Mr. David Christie, but Super Sub Ewan O'Leary does join us in the commentary booth. This is going to be a fun one, surely. The greatest racetrack on the planet.
Greatest, yeah, indeed. It's a wonderful, wonderful race circuit. It's so challenging, so undulating, barriers nearby at every moment, and of course, the best part about it is there's actually overtaking opportunity here as well, unlike other circuits that are named by many to be the greatest circuit in the world. So it's going to be a great finale, although we don't see finales very often at Bathurst. We're seeing one here, and I'll be interested to see how that affects things as we go through with the 2 1-hour races tonight.
Certainly is a pulse raiser over the race. Of course, we did try this for round 4 of the season before some technical issues, but it was turning into a nice little scrap at the front, a three-way fight between the Mercs. However, the BMW does seem to be coming on strong. We noticed this back in Imola with a fantastic drive from BMW G2 Esports. Kind of wondering what the dynamic's going to be around here. It's one which, regardless of car strength, does also come down to a bit of brutish driving to fight your way out of the order. You've got to be brave over the top.
You do have to be brave, and you do have to be brave in making your moves as well. It is possible around here, but you do still have to be very decisive, and it is a circuit that can bite, of course, so you do need to be very on it throughout the day. I mean, championship leaders, of course, in the Bentley here, the 42 car, didn't perform all that well in practice, which is not a great sign for them. I think they were down in 13th or something. Most of their main rivals up very much in towards the top 4, so yeah, the Mercedes proving to be quickest once again, no surprise, but the Bentley a little bit off colour so far.
Who knows who's going to come out on this tyre fight? Of course, you say a Bentley being strong, but it was not particularly strong here last time. So who knows? Well, I'm sure we're in for a nice little tight one, but let's focus on some of the other things that we have coming to you. Of course, we've said before about this being the Coach Dave Super Sprint. We've had the Coach Dave 1000 as well, a couple of rounds of that. We do also have the Coach Dave Time Attack, which is open for you to sign up to. There have been a few changes to it, though, mind, over the last few weeks. We're at round number 2 of the qualifying rounds at Spa, and the few changes that you can that you can't see on here, but we do have. It is no longer forced into the Audi R8 LMS Evo 2. It is an open qualifying of which you can select any type of car that you wish. We are still running at Spa. That is at the moment between the 9th and the 15th of May, and we'll be running to the Nürburgring between the 16th and the 22nd, and we will, of course, be having that broadcast finale on a publicly voted circuit on the 26th of May. But also, there is no entry fee anymore. It was originally $5. Now you can go and take part for free, and I would recommend jumping on there. $1,000 prize pool once we head to that final, the broadcasted finale, which $700 of which goes to our champion of the event, which, as I've said before time and time again, every time we talk about this, that is not a bad payday, Ian.
No, absolutely not. It's very much worth having, isn't it? So yeah, it's a good championship to get involved with, and of course we look forward to that broadcast finale as well in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks today, isn't it? So yeah, looking forward to that over the next few weeks, and yeah, people can choose whatever car they like, which I think a lot of people more are going to enjoy, because if you didn't like the Audi before, then you were kind of stuck. But now you can do what you like, which people are going to enjoy.
Sorry, you just saying it's in 2 weeks just makes me realise how far through the year you're already getting. We're already closing in on the end of May, which at the end of May comes on to the second event that we also have to tell you about. It was announced a bit earlier today, but Coach Dave presents the 6 Hours of Le Mans. This on iRacing. It's a broadcasted event, LMP2s and GT3s, 2 to 6 driver teams. I mean, if you're having a 6-driver team for a 6-hour race, then good on you, because that is what is the very definition of too many cooks in the kitchen, at least for me. But you know, we always like going and racing around the Circuit de la Sarthe, and this is a prime example for you to go and get involved, which you can do so by heading to simgrid.com. That's always a fun one. You know, we like taking them on. LMP2s, GT3s, a great little combination to race around. We've seen a lot of the LMP2s and GT3s recently, Ian.
Yeah, we have seen quite a lot of them, and we will be seeing quite a lot of Le Mans at that time of year as well, at the end of May, coming towards the start of June as well, for real life, and every other series you can think of, just about going to Le Mans. So yeah, this should be a good one, and also broadcasted as well. So we're looking forward to bringing that one to you as well. So yeah, it's good to see SimGrid expanding into iRacing a little bit more, and getting everybody involved in that as well.
Well, very quickly before we show you qualifying coverage, which is presently underway, we'll show you the championship standings and where we are heading into our season finale. This includes the drop round, which they've implemented for this season. It was a little bit later implemented, but this includes that. Simware.pro by Vides at the top of the championship, 200 points for Novikov and Sadarov. A couple of driver changes within the Simware.pro camp, which we will discuss. Yazheat Pirelli in second position, about 21 points back. And then, to me, the team that is really on form at the moment, after a win and a podium in that second race, BMW G2 Sim Racing team, they are sat there in third. Williams Esports, they had a mare last round out, but in that Merc, they are looking pretty strong around Bathurst. And of course, the RDA community team, Valentin Barriere, Machkovsky, who were quite strong in the opening couple of rounds, have had a few flashes, and they were quite strong last round with picking up another podium in the season. R8G, I'm just going to point them out a little bit further down the order because they did go quite strong here. Not in championship contention realistically, but still a team to watch out for around the mountain. And I think it's about time that we go and look at qualifying, because this is going to be a tight session.
It is going to be a very tight session, and it's going to be a very tight evening of racing, I think, really, because as we've seen in the past, these qualifying sessions tend to be, and of course there's a championship on the line here as well. That graphic didn't quite indicate it, but mathematically there are 14 cars that can win this championship, which is quite a lot. Realistically, I think it's going to come down to the top four. And you said, obviously, BMW, the team in form at the moment, the 62 team. Remains to be seen how well they're going to go here at Bathurst, of course. But yeah, last time out, 2 weeks ago, they got the biggest points haul anybody has ever had in this series, in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, with 92 points from one round, which is a record. So if they can produce that again, then they could well be on their way. But let's see if they can. Going to be not easy for them, with a lot of big names around them, big names challenging them, of course.
Well, Novikov then behind the wheel of the 42 and looking for yet another pole position. This car's been on pole position twice in the season so far. It was in the opening couple of rounds. Took them a while to get that first win. But speaking of teams carrying momentum, our championship leaders in the number 42, they did take a race victory in the last race of Imola, courtesy of the entire group behind, fighting hammer and tongs, allowing them to create quite a large gap. Obviously very pleased to head into the season finale with a race victory. It does give you that extra little boost, which, to be honest, when it comes to season finale time, you want that little boost coming into the last round.
I always say, judging the championship finales like this one, where there's lots of people involved, you always look to those who are going well at the moment, and those who you can trust to do it again. And this team here is certainly one of those. It's obviously inform, as we've mentioned, but you would trust them to do a job once again. It remains to be seen as well, as a little side point to all of this. Are we going to get a repeat winner this season? We've had 8 different winners out of the 8 races so far. Surely that can't continue, but then again, Williams haven't won a race yet, and they're 4th in the championship, so who knows? We could well get a 10 out of 10.
I've kind of said, like, every time we go racing, there are other teams where I'm looking at them thinking, yes, that's a team that could win. That is a team that could win. And, Williams being one of those up there. There is also, there was another one up there. There was kind of, the Clash Sim Racing team, Primary Racing. R8G was the other one as well. Again, they looked very strong around here when we went racing a month and a half ago. A month ago when we gave this a go the first time. This is a team to kind of think of when it comes to this circuit. They were looking like one of the strongest teams. If you're going to see different winners, considering it does seem a bit like a Merc track, as there's the skip going through Skyline, coming down into the Dipper. Does manage to keep up. That would be good in the race. Not great. Not
legal, but good. But I don't disagree. But yeah, I think just scraping that inside wall actually at Skyline there, so not ideal, but able to continue on. These times though at the moment are very close as we expected, apart from the gap between first and second. with nearly half a second at the moment between those two Mercedes. Said they were going to be strong, and it is proving to be that way right now as well. But the 41 team, after having a relative disaster at Imola, are right back on it again here in qualifying.
It is kind of an abnormality, though, that we can come into a round like this and actually give you a bit of a form book, because the track temperature, 45 degrees Celsius, that is the same temperature that we had, same with 34 ambient, that is the same temperature that we had when we tried this the first time, obviously back in April. Now, the time set on that day, Abelad's had the pole position. It was a 2 minute 0.575, so currently sat there on a 0.6. Not bad on consistency. Had that pole that day by 0.2 of a second. It was Nick Hoban on a 0.7 that was in second position. Then Dara McCormack, James Baldwin, the Veloce car, not here this round. Then Sholomov, and then Robbie Stapleford, that BMW that could well be aiming for something in the region of about 5th place in this session. They don't seem super fast around here, but they are figuring bits out every single round they go racing, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows really. There's really a lot of unknowns heading into this at the moment, but it is interesting to see that that car is the only car to really have kept pace with the time that they managed to do well, about a month ago now, when we were here previously. So yeah, it's that is interesting. But I would, based on those numbers, I would expect these guys to be kind of winding it up a little bit and be able to go a little bit quicker, as Stapleford is starting to do now. Only 2 tenths away at the moment. So people are going to keep getting quicker and quicker out here, you would expect. But judging by that track map as well at the moment, it isn't the easiest place to kind of find track space, and you can see things getting a bit more complicated now, because not everybody's gone out and done an out lap and then a hot lap, of course, but now it's all a bit weird and everybody's all over the place, so finding track space over the mountain especially is going to be a bit of a challenge.
Well, if there's a circuit that you do actually really kind of want to qualify quite well around, it would be this one. And unfortunately for our championship leaders, 17th at the moment for Novikov right now. Not great indeed. Here's the GTWR R8G Academy car. Chris Hartwell behind the 154. This is one of 2 cars this afternoon that will be receiving a penalty. It's a 15-second penalty when it comes into the pit lane a bit later on in the first race, courtesy of breaching points limits, license limits, when it comes to our driver licenses from race control and such. The other team is the TF Racing car, the number 31, that's currently sat down in 19th position. Those two both receiving a 15-second time penalty during their pit stop, which isn't so great, isn't so bad, but you know, it's not going to be a decider, but it's a bit of a slap on the wrist, unlike what it would have been if we would have seen Yegor Ogrodnikov, who was obviously driving the number 41 last round out at Imola. He received so many penalties, got 3 penalties in 1 lap, got a drive-through penalty for breaching his in-race driver limit, license limit in that race, so that wasn't great. And then if he'd have showed up here as well, he would have basically banned that car from qualifying,
yes,
which wouldn't have been good. Yeah,
the penalties here, just to explain as well, normally it would, or in some other championships, I guess, it would be tied to the car, I guess, these kind of qualifying bans and penalties and whatever, but it's tied to the driver more so. So if you do get rid of your driver, then you can get rid of your penalty, I suppose, for the car anyway. And that's what they've done as well in the 42. I believe they have had a driver change there as well. Bykov was initially supposed to be driving that Bentley, but he's moved over to the 41, I think, or he's not here at all. I think he is in the 41.
He is in the 41.
Yes. So basically that car is going to end up with a penalty instead of the championship contending 42.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
like I say, it's fascinating, but it's not ideal. It's not a great position to be in when you're in a championship fight and such.
No, not particularly. But you've got to do what you've got to do, really, I suppose, to get everybody in the right place in terms of penalties and whatever. It's kind of got to play the game as best as possible. And yeah, for some teams, it means not having your ideal driver lineup in your car for the big race, of course. And in the 42, obviously, they've had to sacrifice Bykov to save their teammates, and they've ended up neither car ideally having the ideal driver pairing. So I guess this is the price you pay when you pick up penalties.
And it's the entire thing that license system is there for. It was criticised quite a bit when it was first brought out for not being harsh enough. And I think now we're seeing why the penalty system exists, because it gets harsher and harsher and harsher as the season goes on. don't get penalties and you don't have to worry about them. So I guess stay out of the wrath of race controllers. We ride on board with Jaroslav Honzik. Started up the season in great form. Of course, back in Brands Hatch with a victory alongside George Boothby. It was a little bit controversial, but there was still a solid round for the Yazheat Richard Mille car. Across the line to 11th position, Honzik goes, so a little bit up, but it's not really the most Ferrari-bound circuit. Williams Esports have had a bit of a hit to start this session. Dara McCormack was originally scheduled to qualify the number 82 that we're presently looking at, and you can see with 4 minutes left to go, less than, there is no time on the board for this car, which is fighting for the championship. This is because Dara McCormack had a power cut, which I can only describe as quite significantly bad. Fingers crossed that it'll be rectified by the halfway point of the race, because they still have to switch drivers during this race.
Yeah, you do have to switch your drivers halfway through this. Well, not halfway through, but there's a pit window in the middle for you to switch drivers. That I don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I that's probably the reason why they've entered the car with the wrong number as well at this stage, because they're supposed to be the 80 at least. Normally they are anyway, and they are the 82 at the moment, so won't take too much getting used to, but yeah, that's probably a reason for that. It's not ideal at all, as you say, only 2 3/4 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. They've got to produce a good session here. 32 points back at this stage coming into today. It is a recoverable distance, but it is possible to recover it, as long as they have a good qualifying at least, which they're attempting to do now.
Well, we're not sure what's going to happen here with the Williams Esports team. The idea is that maybe Tinko van der Velde will have to do this race by himself, which will obviously drop them to the back of the grid. In fact, actually, we're getting it confirmed that because they've got a different car number. You said this before about the 82. They've joined in a different order onto the server because it was originally Dara McCormack, so issues have been abound for that. It means that they will have to do that race solo. Now, with there being a required driver swap, it means that there will be a big penalty added to it at the end of the race, which means they will start the second race from the back of the grid, essentially, with the exception of retirements and such. That's not great. I kind of think that's removing them from the championship hunt, but it means they can still do that second race. It's not great, but unfortunately, they've had such terrible luck the last 2 rounds.
I mean, yeah, it's not ideal for them. 32 points back coming into today anyway. They are quite a fairly long shot, I suppose, but yeah, they did need a very good race weekend, and I'm afraid it's already not happening for them. Just over a minute to go. It looks like this 41 car is going to get the pole position. In terms of the other contenders, the 62 has probably done the best out of that main 4 that we kind of outlined at the start of the day. The 449 of Statsenko, solid job there to 6th. Nothing, not setting the world on fire, but just doing a solid job to be up there in with the other Mercedes cars. The championship leaders, though, the 42 Novikov is down in 19th. I don't actually think he's improved ever since his very first lap time of the day.
No, me neither. That would be a pretty bad session for the 42. Back in, again, in our first attempt at this, obviously I said, go back to the form book as to what we actually have. When they originally tried to qualify, they were down in 13th. That was a big hit into the wall by the Acura ASP team car of Sholobov in the 919. That was a pretty sizable smash, but still manages to keep going. And it would have lost them far too much time to actually wrestle out a decent lap time. I kind of agree with you. I think the 41, at the moment, you don't typically get the time to set one pole position around Bathurst in a season. You know, it takes a lot of effort to do so. The idea that you come along and you could set 2, yes, because of a technicality, but still 2 poles. I mean, looking very strong around here.
Yeah, they certainly are. I mean, it is difficult, as you say. It's difficult enough to do it once. Never mind on a couple of occasions. But yeah, I mean, it is impressive for them, because obviously all the pressure will have been on them coming into this session. Everybody will have been looking at them to do the best job, and they have produced that. Novikov has produced as well, by the looks of things, over the last few months. We said that he hasn't improved at all, and it's not been a great qualifying, but finally jumped up to 11th, become the best Bentley in the field, which is at least something, I suppose. 11th place, not ideal, but it is a far bit better than where they were before.
Could have been much, much, much worse. Here's Robbie Stapleford, one of the drivers that has improved the most in this car. between this run of Bathurst and the previous. Currently up in second position. They originally qualified in 6th place, and it's not just because of repeating lap time. This lap time is a good couple of tenths faster than the previous. I mean, Abelad's has done a 0.4, which for him is 1/10 faster than he did to his original pole position, which means that Robbie Stapleford but let's see what that 82 can do as he crosses the line, goes into, or rather holds on to 8th position. Robbie Stapleford across the line, no further improvement, was about 3/10 off over that lap. Nick Hoban really the last 1 or 2 to be able to fight. In fact, Nick Hoban is done with the session, so he is in the pit lane. So Sven Hettich and Chris Hartwell are the last couple.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if there are any improvements late on here, although Hartveld's been getting close in the last few laps. His best lap time currently is a 1.1, and he did another one on the last lap. We'll see if he can go again here and maybe improve. No, unfortunately not. Very close, but not able to do it, so 7th for him. As we expected, it is a real Mercedes circuit where those cars are really doing very well. At Bentley not suiting it, particularly no top 10 for the championship leader SimWare.pro, but this is where they're really going to earn their credit in terms of championship contenders and championship leaders, because it's on the days where your car is obviously not the best and you're not performing the best is where you need to pick up the most points possible. But let's see what will happen over the race, because of course we need to get through lap 1 first.
Yeah, it's like I say, for some of these qualifying sessions, it's not so bad. We'll try and avoid the start wreck that we had, of course, a month ago, which was substantial, I think is the only way of putting it. I think a few of those back in the pack, including your championship leader, will be concerned about it. But it is kind of one of those circuits which can invite a lot of chaos on the run up towards. It's not Quarry Bend. I know all the track maps say it's Quarry Bend. It's not. It's Griffin's Bend. But that ran up towards turn 2 and Griffin's.
Yeah, my track map doesn't say Quarry Bend, but there we are. Yeah, I don't know where that come from. Definitely Griffin's, and very difficult as well. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more as we go on through the race, but obviously a bit banked on the inside line, and the further you go up, the more off you're going to go. And there's a wall on the outside, obviously. So, yeah, it's a very tricky corner, especially to go side by side through. But we'll see if everybody makes it through. We'll see if everybody makes it through turn 1 as well first. But there's not a very long run down to Hell Corner for the first time. So we shouldn't see too much there, although you never know.
I'm still determined to see you behind the wheel of the sim racing vehicle, including taking one around here. Have you ever driven Bathurst?
Oh, yeah. Oh, who hasn't?
Okay, yeah, no, just mobile. I mean, Zach Sweeney probably hasn't, but,
probably
not dug into him too much on that one. It's a great track.
14.
It's not 14.
It's a joke. But no, I have. It is a fantastic circuit to drive indeed, and to race on as well, as we're about to see.
Well, we'll take a look as we'll roll through the grid. We'll kind of point out some cars which are in good positions. Of course, watch out for Robbie Stapleford on the start. That R8G car on the right-hand side, not taken a victory yet in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, might well try and change that feat this season. The highest placed championship contending car, realistically between the 62 and the 449 that sat in 4th position of Stetsenko, could be a strong one there. And of course, Sven Hettich in the 77 Prime e-racing car, down in 8th position championship, not really in contention for it, but still looking for that race victory. The 82 issues are bound for that car. They are going to get a penalty in this race because they will not be able to get Dara McCormack into the car. So unfortunately for the Williams Esports camp, it is another stroke of bad luck for them in this season. As we'll roll down, you can see the likes of Yaroslav Honzik, you can see the Volante car here on the left-hand side of the shot, and if you look over to the right, you'll see the improvements for the SimWare.pro by Vides car, wherever they've appeared a bit further ahead of this rather on the grid. But it's not been the greatest qualifying session from Novikov. 11th spot. It's not awful. It's about where they were last time, but they were also involved in that massive wreck, which they'll be hoping won't happen again.
Yeah, they will. It's obviously very narrow on the run down Mountain Straight there towards Griffin's Bend, and there's nowhere to go really if something like that does happen again. So it will obviously just be praying, but there's not a lot you can do when you're back in the pack like that. All you can do really is just kind of keep things sensible on your part, make sure that everybody around you is kind of behaving, you're behaving down the straight, and that's all you can really do, especially when you're in a situation like they are. So that's what they'll be focusing on here, rather than worrying really about what could happen ahead, because anything could go on really. So yeah, I mean, they can't worry about it too much, and everybody will just be getting on with their own race rather than thinking about everybody else. Well, that's the way they should be doing it, at least.
Who's winning this race?
Very, very difficult to say. I think it is going to be. I'm going to go with the boring choice. I think it's going to be the 41 from the front. You saw how strong they were in qualifying. You saw how what a gap they had on the rest of the field. Obviously, Stapleford was able to bring that down a little bit towards the end, and we didn't really see an improvement from them throughout the session. But I think they'll have the consistency, and moreover, I think they'll just have the pace to win this race rather than it being a particularly tactical battle.
I mean, I kind of felt that the last time we went racing here, but I don't know what it was in the race. I kind of think that, especially in the hot temperatures, 42 degrees track temp, which will go down a little bit, don't get me wrong, as the race is going on, but that 41 did seem to struggle a little bit more on its tyres than some of the others. I'm almost tempted to look back towards Nick Hoban in the 221 R8G eSports car. They could be in a good spot. They were contending for the race victory a month ago, but then Robbie Stapleford, no Charlie Crossland behind the wheel of the BMW GT eSports car. Obviously, it's Isaac Price who'll be jumping into that. Might well be one, but the BMW is known for being a bit heavier on its boots. I'm gonna commit. I'm going for R8G. I think we're getting a 9th. That's the critical thing. I think we're getting a 9th different winner, which who doesn't want to see?
Well, yeah, I absolutely do want to see that as well. It would be it would be
41
phenomenal.
Hasn't won as well. Oh my
exactly,
God.
Yeah. So still would be alive. Yeah, I was checking. I was sure they had won a race.
Yes.
But clearly not. There's been so many different winners, as I mentioned earlier on, that even the 4th placed in the championship team, Williams Esports, haven't won a race yet, as we mentioned earlier. They're rolling off 8th, by the way, in this fight. A very good qualifying from Van der Velde there, considering he had roughly 3 minutes to do that. So he did a good job there. But yeah, driving on his own for the first race is going to mean he starts at the back for the second one. So ideally he needs to win and then a miracle in the second race. So long shot for them now.
Well, you say that he needs to win. That's the problem, though, is that he can't win. That's the issue. Because to clarify, this is from memory as to what should happen. I'm sure Michael Hamlet will correct. Once he crosses the line, he'll be gifted a lovely, juicy, something like 150, 90, whatever it is, a big penalty, basically, for not fulfilling the pit stop mandate, which will, regardless whether he wins, unless he wins by a lap, is going to drop him right back. That's what's dropping him towards the back, not just the fact of joining in a different number. That's kind of the critical thing there. So despite being in this race, kind of more of a learning process.
Yeah, well, learning what they can at this stage, I suppose, at the end of a season. So yeah, they'll be very disappointed with that, of course, and they'll just do what they can. But it's certainly a long shot for them as the drivers just get themselves 2 by 2 formed up, ready for this rolling start. We'll see what could possibly happen in this race. Are we going to see a 9th winner in 9 different races? We certainly hope so. Let's see if it happens.
There's a few options for us, Ewan, to see who could take yet another win in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, or will we see a repeat in the form of the likes of Robbie Stapleford or the 449 of Stutsenko? Only one way to find out as we prepare ourselves. The penultimate race of the Coach Dave Super Sprint about to get ready as we prepare to go underway once again at the mountain. Abelad's on pole position, Stapleford alongside, and it is the Simware.Pro by Vides car who's had the best launch down into turn 1. R8G already on the attack, but it's Yaz Heat going around the outside. Stutsenko's been pushed off though, as he's just been squeezed a little bit there from Nick Hoban. I think Race Control might say something about that, as Williams Esports and Prime E Racing are charging up the hill behind. Nick Hoban is in third. Our race leader's under a bit of attack though. Robbie Stapleford and that BMW M4 GT3 is on the attack, is not able to do anything as the Yaz Heat car is dropping backwards, has to worry about GTWR RHG Academy going around the outside. You've got Williams on the right-hand side of the shot as they head up the hill through Griffin's Bend and up towards the cutting. They're still side by side. GTWR and the Williams car still side by side. Yaroslav Honzik watches on from behind, thinking please go single file before we attack the mountain.
Yeah, and they have done that now rather sensibly, really, but the field is really stacked up in this part of the racetrack. Through turn one, obviously people going wide and all sorts of stuff getting thrown in the air, and everybody fanned out across the road. The top three got away quite nicely, but after that it is a bit of a mob, as you can see a little bit further back here. Thankfully it's all sort of sorted itself out by this stage, but it doesn't make things any less stressful as they head downhill now.
Well, the 15-second time penalty to Gerard is there. It's not for a jump start. That is for the licence limit breach. We're expecting the same one. There it is for Chris Harteveld as well in that GTWR RHG Academy car that is sat in 7th position. So the two of those, it's for licence breaches, not for anything specifically in this race. As back up towards 5th position, Stutsenko back on the charge, now trying to attack Sven Hetic in the highest place McLaren on the grid. Got to go around the outside of the chase. It's a brave move. You can see there's already some damage on the front end of that Mercedes. Gets to the inside into the braking zone, but the McLaren 720 holds on.
Yeah, very nicely on the brakes there. It just having the outside line actually was clear going into the chase there, or at least the left-handed part of it. So yeah, nicely on the brakes there and nicely defended. We go a little bit further back to this kind of madness that is going on just outside of the top 10 into the final corner. And yeah, you see what I mean by it being stacked up. It was initially the lower part of the top 10 that was like this. Now it's kind of filtered its way down to outside of the top 10, where they're still battling, kind of feeling the effects of lap 1 really, and things very, very close.
Well, it's Patil that went down the inside of the TF Racing Souvlaki car of Chaldakis, who's now having to worry about this on the run end up towards Griffin's Bend. But that mighty Bentley, the straight line speed that it has, should be able to carry it. You've got Carbon as well attacking the other TF Racing car a couple of positions behind. Around the outside, Patil's going to go way too deep there. It's opened the door for one of the Ren Vuelton cars as well to come through, and the other TS Racing car and a couple of the other ones. I think the Sim Racing Masterclass McLaren as well has got through. Indeed it has. The 777 of Jadwat there. Also there's a spin in the background. Didn't catch who that was, but someone definitely went for a spin.
Yeah, I guess it was the 25 maybe that went around. Not entirely sure though. No idea really. Looks like it was the 416 in the end who's gone around. So yeah, the cutting has unfortunately taken a victim already here on lap 2. Not unexpected, because it was so close between everybody, and it's so narrow there, as I mentioned earlier, that it's impossible to get around. The 25 and the 111 indeed are now stopped as well at McPhillamy Park by the looks of things.
There's a couple of issues going off. Tausch has apparently gone off. Kausch rather has gone off at Skyline. I was going to say Tausch is not in this race, but fair enough. Kausch has gone off at Skyline. So there's been a couple of issues on the run over the second lap. I mean, the thing is, around here it is really one of those circuits where we can see it being a track or car issues. Either way, Tinko van der Velde down the inside, and he makes up the position on Sven Hetic. Around the outside, though, Stutsenko has also found his way through to grab what is now 6th position, dived it down under the brakes, and Tinko van der Velde up inside the top 5. The Yaz Heat car up inside 6th position. Sven Hetic going backwards a little bit in the fairly unfavoured McLaren. But a couple of positions behind, he's got Jonas Savalainen in a fellow McLaren, which I think he might be able to keep at bay for now.
Yes, they're just about finding their normal place in the train again after some of the madness that went on early on, especially this McLaren that is just falling back continuously after Mercedes just to continue to go down the inside of him. And the latest one, of course, is Chris Harteveld, who now manages to do it into the second turn, and he's up to 7th place. But yeah, Stutsenko recovering now after that poor first lap. He's now back up to where he started again, which is a start, I suppose. But he'd really rather be up a little bit further. And the big problem he has is that there's 3 seconds separating Van der Velde and the battle for second place that is going on up the road. He'd really rather be in that battle himself, but his poor start has meant that he's kind of missed the boat, and he's 3 seconds behind already.
Well, we get to really see what this track's like from a driver's eye view. Yaroslav Honzik wrestling it around, going through McPhillamy Park down towards Skyline at the moment, trying to chase down the prime e-racing car of Sven Hetic, balance it on the brakes, down through the S's, going down into the dipper as well. It's such a tricky and relentless circuit. You're essentially holding your breath all the way over the top until finally you get to Forest Elbow, you hook it into that last apex, and now you can breathe. Now you can start to think about it, but be careful not to overthink, because that can happen quite a lot to the braking zone down into the chase.
Yeah, it's a very tricky braking zone. Obviously flat out in the right-hander for these cars, even side by side. But you do have to think about nailing your braking zone, of course, and that's you've got a long time to do so down Conrad Straight. Into the final chicane we go, though, and it's all fine for everybody coming into here. A couple more issues, it looks like, for a couple of cars further back as well. The 486 looks like it's been off the road, possibly over the top of the mountain. A few cars already have been collected by the very, very tricky section over the top of the hill there. Yes, the mountain already biting, I'm afraid.
That's why it's a struggle to go through a race, 12 hours with 0 instant points, right? It's very, very tricky. I did that, come on, that's me. No, it's not. I definitely bounced it off the wall a couple of times. It's such a difficult circuit. It is one where you're kind of asking for trouble every single time. This is Jolobov in what it says is the ACRA ASP team. Of course, it's not. It's one of the SMP racing cars. Well, a car that actually won a few rounds ago, I believe, back in Barcelona in the second race. I think it was a 1-2 for the SMP esports team, if memory serves. But either way, it was definitely the one that was victorious that day in a fantastic race for the team. Struggled quite a lot prior to it that season. Of course, I think it finished outside of the top 20 in the first couple of races, had a retirement in the second round, then suddenly comes into it, gets the top 10, gets the reverse grid victory. Absolutely superb. The 72, by the way, has received a 5-second time penalty. That one has come from race control.
Yeah, first one of the day, and I suspect not the last either, judging by the way things have gone so far and the way things are expected to go. Coming up in the rest of this race as well. I don't think that is going to be the last time we see race control interfering with somebody's race, because they've done something wrong. So we'll see on that one. But the pressure that Zolobov is applying now to the RHG Esports Mercedes just up in front is taking some pressure off of Stapleford, who's been allowed to get away a little bit. It got as big as 0.8 of a second through the first sector of the lap, but over the mountain a little bit less pressure on the 221, and Hubin's just been able to reel that BMW back in ever so slightly once again, but still far too far back to make a move. And all of this kind of tactical playing going on in this battle for second at the moment is all playing into the hands of SimWare.pro's 41 Mercedes as they continue to run away with this race lead at about 1.5 seconds they have now.
Like you say, it's a bit more of a tactical race, this one, than even it looks like from the offset. With it being 41 degrees on the track temperature, it is very hot. Of course, it's Australia. It's a difficult circuit. Chris Harteveld has come into the pit lane, though. Why has Chris Harteveld come into the pit lane at GTWR RHG Academy? Unfortunately.
Yeah, look, one of the Porsches, I'm afraid, getting into contact with that car. That was, really disappointing and a shame for the 111 team, which was the car that hit. It's really, a blind crest, of course. So if there's a car spun in front of you, there's almost nothing you can do. And unfortunately, we've seen the effects of that now. We're puzzled, by the way, as to what has happened to Chris Hartwell there, because we haven't seen a reason really.
And we've been told that there doesn't seem to be any damage on the 154. So kind of leads me to believe, now I've done this before, I don't know how possible it is to do in ACC, but potentially he started the race on quali fuel or on a lower fuel, which, like I say, I don't know exactly how possible it is. I've done the race on default setup. There was one race that I was doing in the smoke and wheelers, and it was feeling great for the first couple of laps until we got onto a straight, and I would...
That was a big hit going down Skyline there and towards the dipper. It was very hard contact with the wall, so no surprise really to see Hartwell have to come into the pit lane and repair some damage there now. Down to 25th position after all that, and over a lap down now as well. So a real shame to see for Hartveld, running right or knocking on the door of a top 5 at least, but no more for him. He's dropped way off our screens now.
Well, we did also just see that Stutsenko has got up into 5th position. You can see as well in the background the Volante cars trying to keep both of the TF Racing McLarens at bay. Chardakis and then Gerardis. Jabwa as well in that battle. So there's 4 McLarens all fighting over what is 15th position on the track as Valentin Barriere is trying to attack our championship leader in Sadarov, who sat in 11th position at the moment. Novikov did the qualifying for this car, and Sadarov starting it means they want Novikov obviously to start the second race, because they each have to do a race start and a race end. Valentin Barriere is trying to take advantage of this car being one of the race winning cars so far in the season. The very first race back in Brands Hatch, it was in the second race in the reverse grid.
Yeah, it was. It's struggling at the moment. I've got to say, these Bentleys, they really are. The 42 and the 44, both outside of the top 10. You can see the gaps as well, up towards the couple of McLarens just up in front, and then behind the 2 Aston Martins, giving them a pretty hard time. So this is not good news for Sadarov, I have to say, just up in front. And that 42, we've spoken about them obviously a little bit in the past about championship aspirations, obviously coming in with a 21-point lead, but how big of a lead are they going to have even after race 1? At the moment, they're not even going to get a benefit off the reverse grid.
Well, here comes Valentin Barriere to the inside, and now getting past Sadarov as they've even before they've got down into the high-speed right-hander at the chase, down onto the brakes, and while Sadarov was having a bit of a little look there, I think it was courtesy of just the line that was being taken. Got to worry about the 383 of Jan Willem van Omen in the GTWR Dolking Community car that sat there in 13th position. A car that was actually looking really, really strong. That was a little bit of a miss of the final apex, I think that was, from Valentin Barriere, and Sadarov might be able to come back through, by the way.
Yeah, we'll see. It's a long straight coming up for you to make that mistake, but doesn't look like it just for the moment. We'll see though. As we focus on the battle for second, it's closer than it ever has been really. Stapleford now starting to struggle a little bit maybe with this pressure that Hubin is applying onto him right now, with less than what's that, quarter of a second at this stage. It is very close, but there's just not a lot you can do. It is difficult to get through at this circuit. Obviously not impossible, as we mentioned earlier, but it is not the easiest either, because this whole middle part of the circuit is a write-off essentially.
Over the top then, once again, we'll see BMW G2 Esports. Fair amount of pressure building on Robbie Stapleford's shoulders, especially as that gap is starting to grow, and the further that gap grows, the more pressure that's applied, as Nick Hoban and Sholobov will want to get through on Stapleford, because they'll feel that Abelads is starting to pull away, making that gap bigger and bigger and bigger. You can see how little Stapleford's leaving over the top, is absolutely throwing it as fast as he can over the top of the mountain. Of course he is. You're in the middle of a race. You are going to be resting this car to its very, very limit. The issue kind of being, though, that I'm not so sure that BMW is strong over the top. It seems fast enough in a straight line, because even in the slipstream, Nick Hoban can't really do anything about that BMW power unit. So it does seem as though that M4 is fast enough in a straight line to keep Nick Hoban at bay, which makes Nick Hoban think, okay, I've got to do something then going down into Griffin's Bend at the end of the mountain straight, surely, or maybe even down into T1 at Hell Corner if there is the opportunity. But he's just missed the apex a bit there going into the final at Murray's.
Unfortunately for him, the start-finish straight not long enough to be punished for it, but yeah, I think in terms of the race lead, it's almost too little too late for these guys at this stage already. There's still 45 minutes to go. Hubin might be able to make his way through here, but it's still going to be very tricky to chase down the leader. And you can see there the BMW does have great speed on the straights inside line into turn 2, and there's no way you're going to be able to make your way around the outside there, even if you're level going into the corner, never mind behind, with the way that corner is banked. So it's going to be another frustrating lap for this Mercedes, strong in all the wrong areas to try and make things work here, try and make your way through. And this is an interesting point to note for the reverse grid race. How easy is it going to be for these Mercedes, which are clearly the best car to have around here? How easy is it going to be for them to get through on some of the cars like the Mercedes, like the McLaren and the Ferrari, which they're going to come across as into the wall, scraping the wall there was Hubin.
Oh, I don't know. It looked like a bit more of a scrape there for the R8G car. That seemed like a bit more of a whack. Definitely on the front right. That is not going to feel great right now. Of course, we're about 15 minutes away from the halfway point of the race where we'll actually have the pit window sequence. About 10 minutes away from the pit window. Oh my goodness! Right, so Valentin Barriere has had a big tap there when that's with the championship leader, the number 42. The GTWR Dalkin community car also comes through. The Rem Welton Aston also comes through, and that was a heavy hit from the Jardier community car into that barrier.
A very heavy hit indeed, and you can see immediately why they're dropping down the order quite so quickly. That was a heavy hit both at the first part and then at the end of it as well. When they actually got to turn 2, they had another big impact to come, so that is going to affect them quite badly down this straight, you would imagine, as it already has. Although they don't seem, well, okay, yeah, now we're getting towards top speed. They really are going to get absolutely mauled, and yeah, there we go. The Ferrari and McLaren are going to be able to make their way through easily into the chase, and there they go. So yeah, Barrier surely has got to be in the pit lane soon, but there's 8.5 minutes till the pit window opens, so he might be wanting to tough it out as bad as this car is right now.
Let's just see, what does Valentin Barriere do? He is going to tough it out. They'll come in right at the start of the pit window sequence, which I do kind of get, but a very costly mistake. Did not only saw it from the one angle, so we can't really judge. I do wonder if Valentin Barriere might have squeezed a little bit too much when there was a car there. Of course, they did have to worry about the Carbon SimSport car, which was on the right-hand side. I think it was the Carbon SimSport car anyway. It was on the right-hand side as they were going into the corner at Griffin's Bend, but still not great. Here's another position that they're going to drop back as Gerardus in the TF Racing car gets through. That car is very, very poorly.
Very poorly, yeah. It's not actually that obvious through the corners, but although we haven't really seen them over the mountain yet, it's especially obvious down the straight. No further action, by the way, between 31 and the 995 for an incident a little bit earlier on in the race, so that's all resolved for now. Well, there didn't need to be anything too resolved, so there we are. But yeah, I mean, that penalty is very, very poorly. But you can then again understand why Barrier is trying to stick it out. Of course, you need to make one pit stop during the pit stop window, and that includes driver change. This close, you would just stick it out. Although it's beginning to become impossible for them to do that any longer.
Solid NVM on that one. Valentin Barriere off a big style down into McPhillamy, obviously indicating to rejoin the race circuit, but that is, I'm going to say, a pretty solid let's join into the pit lane and then see what we can get in the next race, because that isn't going to be so much fun for Valentin Barriere and the Jardier community car. There is a penalty coming out for the Sim Racing Masterclass car. You can see it there on your screen, 16th position, Jadwatt in the 777. That is a penalty for contact between themselves and the number 31 TF Racing car, which is presently being driven by Gerardus. So that's why that car is receiving a penalty during its pit stop, which opens in 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
Plenty of penalties to be served down there in the lower part of the top 20. You can see there's going to be a few people dropping back, I'm afraid, because of those. So yeah, well, no penalties for those right up towards the front on this occasion, which makes a change, especially from Imola. But yeah, we can see here Barriere having real problems with that car. It did get a little bit of help from that fellow Bentley, but it was already going and gone by the point they got into McPhillamy Park. And yeah, as you say, well, I say that he's still sticking it out. He actually went past the pit lane there, so he's still sticking it out. But even if he does retire or not from this race now, there's really not a lot he can get from it.
I mean, yeah, like you say, if he continues on, he crashes. Well, he's probably going to finish last anyway, and you know, if he stays out, maybe he'll finish last. If he crashes, he's going to finish last. If they pit now, guess what? They're probably going to finish not last, but you know, down the order. So yeah, I get it from both ways. We're focused on the battle though for second position. This is Stapleford, Hoban and Sholobov. Sholobov dropping off of the rear end of it, whilst Abelard has been able to pull out a fairly sizable 2.5 to 3 second race lead. Stapleford frustrating Nick Hoban here in that R8G Academy car. I did this once to Florian Haase. I had a car with a much faster straight line speed. We were racing around the Nordschleife, where despite it apparently being one of the greatest, it's a great track. It was one of the greatest racing tracks on the planet. Some people would say it's #1 when it comes to greatest racetracks, but you can only really pass there on like the Duttinger Hoer or the run up towards the Muckkurve and that lot. And with that, if you've got a car that's an absolute bullet in a straight line, you can be terrible in the corners, which I am a bad driver. And Florian Haase is a multiple sim racing champion at the highest level. And it's like still kept them at bay. Point being in this example is that Robbie Stapleford just keeping Nick Hoban at bay. He's frustrating Hoban to the point where he might do something a bit silly later on. That was a big dive from Durkop down the inside of your championship leaders, who now have to worry about the TF Racing Souvlaki car also coming through of Choudakis, who's got the inside down at Hell Corner.
Yeah, he's got a very tight line though. Savarov made sure of that, but he's been shoved off himself now into turn 1 and will lose further momentum. Will Dimitrov maybe be able to get involved there in the 70 coming into turn 2? It's possible, although I think the momentum has just about been regained by the 42 there, so it's going to be all fine. Back down into Griffins once more. But yeah, that was a very decisive move from Choudakis. He was, as I say, given a tight line, and he made sure that Sadarov wasn't given much room on the exit of turn 1 there as well. So hard battling between the two of them, but Sadarov is going to be particularly disappointed with this at the moment, down in 14th. Only 12 points being picked up, and no matter what happens today, Simware.pro, this will count towards their score. We do have a drop week in this championship. This will count towards their score because their previous drop week is a 0.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone's drop score at the top of the championship is a bad round. Like, it's not like it's a, you've had a 10th and a 12th, and it's like that's your drop score. No, they're mostly like really sizable penalties. There is the confirmation, by the way, of the penalty for Pertil in the Clash Racing Bentley. That's a bit further down now in 20th position, in that 129 car. But yeah, no one's really had like that level of position. We've kind of seen this before time and time again in various championships here at the SimGrid. It's not about strength of field in a sense. It is actually about strength of field, but kind of in the opposite way that you would imagine. It's because the strength of field is so high that when you go to a circuit, the car really matters. If you go to a fairly weak source championship, like anything that I would race in, if someone's in a Ferrari, whether you're racing here at Bathurst or racing here or racing at Imola or Barcelona or whatever, if they're a great driver and they're in the Ferrari, they'll probably win, right? Because the strength is high and they can wrestle out that extra couple of tenths. In this championship, if your car does not match the circuit even to a couple of tenths, you are probably going to be somewhere down the back end, if not outside of the top 10. That's just how the strength of field is in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, as now Nick Hoban is under pressure from Sholomov.
Yeah, I think your point is illustrated really by the gap between 6th and 7th at the moment, nearly 3 seconds between Van der Velde and Hettich. That is the gap between the Mercedes group up the front of the field and everybody else headed by the McLarens and the Ferraris, with a sprinkle of Aston Martin a few seconds down. But yeah, it's a gap that's very telling at this stage. Hettich maybe overperforming in that McLaren slightly. He certainly is the best McLaren in the field at the moment, and Van der Velde struggling to, obviously things have gone wrong for them today already, so their day's never going to be perfect. But yeah, 3-second gap, very telling when you look at some of the others, especially this one in this battle for second, although as you said earlier, it's difficult to get through when you're the car, especially at Bathurst. It's difficult to get through when you're the car with the downforce in a particular fight. I actually enjoy being the car with the downforce in this situation. A lot of people find it frustrating. I actually really enjoy it as a driver, although it's maybe because I take things a little bit less seriously. It's just a good bit of fun, but I can imagine around Bathurst, when you're trying to gain points and all that, it would be very frustrating because there is almost nowhere to pass. Down here into the chase is probably your best overtaking opportunity, and there's no way you can use it with no straight line speed, or less straight line speed, we'll say.
Don't really come across as someone that would be very there was Sheldon Muscat, by the way, the number 8 car, be angry, effing and jeffing behind the wheel of a car. So I can see you being a bit more relaxed in a battle like that. Me, very much less so. My streams are not PG, and that's why I don't stream anymore. I don't like being in that spot because it is incredibly frustrating, because there is only so much that you can do, and you're sat there thinking, I'm throwing this car over the top faster than is humanly possible, and yet I'm still behind the same BMW and I cannot get through. It is irritating, but again, you need to think big picture. You need to think of other ways around them, which they are now going to be given the opportunity because the pit window has just opened.
Yeah, it certainly has, and the leaders are going to get a chance to come in next time around to kind of get out of traffic. And I think exactly to your point there, Hubin and Zabolov, or at least one of them, are going to have a go at making an undercut work here. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can come into play for the battles during the pit stop windows. However, I think that an early pit stop might not be a bad idea, although they're also going to have to do the calculations on traffic. You don't want to end up stuck behind someone else after you come out of pit lane.
Indeed. Well, we've got a couple of notes from race control. They've been obviously looking into a variety of things in the recent past. The incident between the 44 and the 42, that was the one that sent, of course, the Jardine community car right into the barrier down at Griffin's Bend. NFA on that one. No further action, courtesy of it apparently coming down to being a bit of netcode, ping and such. So fair enough. Kind of get that one. That is fair enough. It didn't look great from the angle that we saw, but of course, race control can see it from every angle they can think of, really, and so clearly viewing that one. And a 5-second time penalty to the TF Racing Souvlaki car to make it 2 penalties for both of their cars. It's 5 seconds for the 34, and obviously the 31 of Gerardis has a 15-second time penalty for the licence breach. So not great day for TF Racing so far, as Sholomov has entered. I was about to really question where Sholomov has gone in that 919 S&P Racing car, but he has come into the pit lane trying to jump this duo.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad idea at all. The real question is going to be where he comes out in terms of traffic. If he comes out in traffic, then it's not going to happen, but on his own, he could very well jump himself into second place in this race. Well, his car might be able to. It's not going to be him. But if you look at the little bit of free track space, most of this field is very close, all the way down to about, oh goodness, wherever that is, in the top 14 or so, it's very close. After that, though, there's a lot of free track space back to some of the cars that are lapped down at this stage, some of the cars that have been into the pit lane already, and all of that. So if he comes out there, then he will have a good opportunity. But if not, then it's going to be quite a long stint for him. It looks like, makes you out of the pit lane now, there is 1 or 2 lapped cars around, but lapped cars are a bit of a different prospect than cars you actually have to overtake.
Yeah, they could be a little bit sketchy when you're driving around as a lead lap driver. You're trying to battle it out for a race victory, a podium, a top 5, a top 10, whatever it is. And suddenly you see a dot of someone who you're definitely not battling with coming around ahead of you, and you're sat there thinking, okay, is your car damaged? Because around most circuits, you're kind of thinking, do you know what? It's not great, but I can also make my way past, so that's fine. Whereas around here, if they're ahead of you going over the mountain, you've kind of got to accept that there's no real good opportunity for you to make a pass over the top unless they're kind enough to jump out of the way. So you've got to wait until you come out of Forest Elway. By that point, you could have lost half a second, maybe even 2. And that is that could be curtains on your chance of taking a race victory.
Yeah, it can do. I mean, fine margins, really. Even we're talking about the 41 car at the top, like they've won the race already. They only have 2.5 seconds, which really would come undone very quickly with any kind of mistake. So, yes, it's fine margins, really, especially in this series, as we've seen time and time again. And speaking of fine margins, this penalty in by the 34, of course, is going to drop them behind Sadorov, which who's come in right now as well, on the 42. That is also going to have championship implications. So these small mistakes are going to add up over this race. Yeah.
Championship leader into the pit lane, Senko into the pit lane. Chadakis does get past Durkop, who absolutely sends it in back down into turn 1 and manages to hook it up to the apex. Fair enough, these two maintaining their order at the moment. 11th position for Durkop in the legendary Unicorns of Love sexy edition car. The last time we see that this season is the TF Racing Souvlaki car to the outside and the right up towards Griffin's Bend. That would have to be a big send around the outside, which can work, but you have to be really far alongside. In fact, I'd argue slightly ahead, rolling into the corner. You need to have like a good half car length ahead, but if you really want to make it stick around the outside, which that definitely wasn't.
Yeah, we've spoken about the banking time and time again there, or the camber of the term, that we should say probably. Yeah, it's you probably do need to have your nose ahead going into that corner, really, if you want to go around the outside. But going offline there at all really is very difficult. You're much more likely to make the move at the chase, which I reckon Trodak is going to have a go at doing if he doesn't mess things up going over at Skyline here, who's dipped a wheel on the grass a few corners ago, but keeps things on the road nicely and just tries to set himself up. The important corner of his Forest Elbow is coming up right here. Let's see if the exit is good enough coming out of there. It's actually a very good one for Turkov, and it looks like, yeah, very good. And he's going to save himself any defending, I think, coming into the chase.
Well, we've at least got Nick Hoban into the pit lane. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left of the sequence, so a good couple of laps. Abelads and Stapleford do remain out for now as this battle continues down in 10th position. Tinko van der Velde dives into the pit lane but won't be able to complete a driver swap. Which does mean that his pit lane sequence will not be completed. So his will remain with the orange block and the white number 1 in the middle of it through the pit lane sequence. When it switches over to green, that means they've completed that sequence. So unfortunately for the Williams Esports team, this one's not going to be ideal. Robbie Stapleford, 2.5 seconds, kind of closed in for a couple of laps there on Abelads, but still holding out to 2.5 seconds. I'm curious as to the lap time that Murdasov does and where he comes out in pit lane comparatively to the R8G Esports car. His outlap was a 2:55, and as he just comes through the final corner now, keep my eye on the timesheets as he's aiming for a very low 2-minute 1. It's 2-minute 1.9, so it's not very low 2-minute 1, but it is the same time as your race leader and pretty much identical as well to Robbie Stapleford.
I was going to say, it still might be good enough here. It's a nice, obviously a better run out of turn 1 for the 919. To try and get through, but it looks like Huben's done enough to get Hosseini up in front. It does look like, looking at the lap times there that you read out, Lewis, that those times and those outlaps are not quite good enough for Murdasov to be able to make his way through. He had the opportunity, he had the clean air, and he had the chance to go through, but doesn't look like he's been able to execute. We'll see now what Hosseini's next outlap looks like, because he now has the opportunity to make a jump on Robbie Stapleford, who's either got the opportunity to come in next lap or on the on this lap.
I think Hosseini hit the wall just a little bit coming up through Quarry Bend. And now going over the mountain section, way too tight through McPhillamy there, I do feel. Obviously could be a little bit of connection as well, kind of making it seem a little bit worse than it is. But either way, didn't look great. I mean, think of what you're asking your driver to do. Think of what you're asking Murdasov to do. You know, you've come into the pit lane, you've switched driver, then you have to get in, and instantly you don't have a couple of laps to build up to it. You know, even like over the first couple of laps of the race, you do have a few laps to build your way into the race whilst everything's quite tight, and you don't have to be instantly lapping at your absolute maximum. Whereas when you jump into the car mid-race, suddenly you have to leave the pit lane and it has to be on by the first apex. Here comes, though, Murdasov down the inside of that R8G Academy car. Hosseini still leaves it down the inside. This is what they can't do, though. If they have any chance of winning this race, they cannot battle like this. Hosseini's in too deep, a little bit of a brush, though, and Murdasov does pick up the spot, but what has it cost?
Well, yeah, it's already, it has cost them there. Hosseini really gave that one to him, though. I have to say, and this outlap has not been particularly strong from him. He's struggled just a little bit to get going. We saw him at the over the top of the mountain having a few problems. Oh, that was very late on the brakes as well. Nearly powers into the back of Murdasov. So really struggling early on in this stint. And you can see the 62. Look at the battling and what effect it's had. Stapleford's handed that car over and it's in a very nice place.
Absolutely miles away. The car between them, by the way, of course, is the Jardier community car of Machkovsky, who sat in 22nd position at the moment. But as we were saying, that battling, now, no, it didn't cost the entirety of that gap, but it has cost a lot of it. When you're battling it out that hard, you're losing a second, maybe two, maybe three, and that's exactly what they were doing. They were fighting over a position where they're not really thinking about the long game. And you need to always think about it. Just because it's a sprint race doesn't mean you can't ignore the long game. You still need to play that long game. 30-odd seconds left of the pit lane sequence, so we still need to see Sven Hedic and Abelads down into the pit lane, but I believe they're in the final sector now, as we do indeed have Abelads into the pit lane and Sven Hedic coming down into the final corner now, so he'll pop up into the pit lane. Tinko van der Velde, the lone car inside the top 10, the lone car really on the field, that has not fulfilled the pit lane requirement, courtesy of not being able to switch over to Dara McCormack. If you went with us earlier in the coverage, Dara McCormack had a power cut during qualifying, and he was the driver that was supposed to qualify the car. So as he's basically booted out, Tinko van der Velde's had to rejoin. It's rejoined him in a different car and meant that they could not switch during this pit stop sequence. So they're going to have to start the next race from the back and in not an ideal spot for the championship.
Yeah, you'd have to say that they are out of it, and when this all shakes out, we'll do a little bit of calculating as to where everybody is. But yeah, it's battles further down. This is for the best non-Mercedes or BMW in the field, unless when Hetich gets here, then obviously he will be that. But yeah, it's a nice fight. Glatter trying to make his way through. Obviously, been involved in sim racing for a very long time. Been at the top of the sim racing for a very long time as well. But more used to seeing him on R-Factor 2. Than ACC, although he does seem to be plying his trade here fairly often as well.
I mean, I'm more used to seeing him on R-Factor 1, mate. I don't know about you. I've raced with Sasha Glatter years ago, a very long time ago.
Even you've raced with him.
Even me, yep.
Yeah.
That's how old I am, thank you. Sometimes you've got to race with the greats to understand how bad you actually are. I say raced with, that's kind of like the really critical thing, is that we were on very different ends of the grid. Read into that what you will. Either way, though, sat in 9th position. There is Tinko van der Velde attacking Sven Hetich, going down into the cutting. God, that would have been a bold move. You can make an overtake into the cutting. But again, same as trying to go around the outside into Griffin's Bend, you've got to be fully alongside, if not slightly ahead, to really complete the pass. Yeah,
it's a very tight cut, and we've seen some very iconic moments at Bathurst, actually, from contact there, ironically. It happened a few years ago with Van Gisbergen, maybe? Don't know. Can't remember. But yeah, it's a bit risky. It's very narrow through there, and obviously the risk versus reward is quite high in terms of the risk part of that equation. So Van der Velde decided to stay behind. Indeed, he has actually been jumped in this pit stop cycle by the 77 McLaren team, excuse me. Not entirely sure how, whether it was just good in-laps from Hetich. It could well have been, but they stayed out for a very long time. And Van der Velde got himself jumped there, and now he's having to do this overtake on the road.
Indeed. They can, in this race, they are required to switch some tyres, add a little bit of fuel as well. The next race, slightly different. No tyres, no fuel, not allowed to. Tinko van der Velde. Oh, that's a big catch. That is a big catch from Tinko van der Velde. I don't know how he's still in this race. That was massive on the inside. Such an aggressive snap. I think it was the classic 2-foot hack save right there. If you're sideways, you instantly slam onto the brakes to try and correct the front of the car. That's exactly what happened. Samir Foch having to look backwards towards Sasha Glatter and Gobby as well on the attack in that race work car, and the grip packs engineering. A little bit of a weave there from Sasha Glatter, still not able to get past the Yas Heat Ferrari.
Yeah, not able to make their way through there, which is not surprising into turn one. It is difficult, but Glatter continuing to apply the pressure really hard at the minute. But the Ferrari just doing enough, staying in front, and it looks like it's going to into turn two as well, unless there's going to be a big dive here. Having a little look, but not able to do it. Yeah, I mean, big save at the chase. You don't have to get small moments there, do you? So you do need some very quick reactions and quick hands as well. But thankfully, Van der Velde was able to just save himself there, and he can continue on in that battle for sixth.
Who was it who rolled at the chase? I think back in 2010, maybe. Was it Will Davison? And it was a massive, like 6, 7, 8 roll, a big shunt going down into the chase. I think basically got tapped off and then got beached, or the wheels dug into the gravel, and away she went. It wasn't good, but either way, that's where some of the negatives come from in gravel traps. There was a switch behind, I think, with, I don't know who that was actually. But either way, I think there was a switch behind.
God, sorry, very close there between the two for third. Mirzasov holds the inside line, a little bit of contact, and holds on just about, but that could have got a lot worse. I think it might well have been in the battle for 8th, or at least some kind of change, because the 49 going, I think, over Skyline towards the Dipper, then, yeah, has certainly spun around and is losing time hand over fist at the minute. So I think there may have been something going on in that battle, if not a position change, then a spin at the very least.
I actually think it might have just been my eyes. I think it might have been. That's why I was a bit confused on the positions. Which it might have been Malinovsky getting past the Jade community car, which is obviously a lap down. So I will cancel that one myself and roll back on that one ever so slightly. Let's focus on the race at hand as we head into the final 20 minutes. Bykov leading in the number 41 SimGrid.pro car, looking for the 41's first race victory of the season to make it 9 different winners from 9 races. Isaac Price in second position and potentially closing that gap. It was 2.5 before the pit stops, is now 1.8, although the last couple of laps, Bykov does seem to have the pace of it. Murdasov behind the SMP racing car that is on the podium. That is the battle that we're looking at the moment, as Amir Hosseini is trying to apply that pressure. The two of these, what could have been for them? You know, they've battled out a fair amount just before the top 2 pitted, and they've lost out a fair amount of time courtesy of it. Malinovsky behind inside the top 5, 7 and a bit seconds clear of Tobias Schur and the Tinko van der Velde battle, but Tinko van der Velde is going to receive a penalty at the end of the race, and that also won't help by completely skipping the S's section. Yeah, that's going to be a penalty, I'm afraid. But yeah, I mean, up front, you mentioned there Bykov and Isaac Price, 1.8 seconds apart at the minute. I'm not entirely sure that is done just yet, as it goes to over 2. Price is certainly keeping him honest in these final 20 minutes. So Bykov is going to have to just to see this one out nicely. But yeah, it's certainly not over at the front. The battle for 3rd is really hotting up as well as this one for 6th. And of course we've seen the one for 8th as well. But the battle for 3rd is probably the most physical that we can see up towards the front. Hosseini really did struggle on that outlet. We saw him going wide a few times. It allowed Murdasov to get through. I actually thought he was going to get really steamrolled in this particular stint by everybody. But he has quickly got himself up to speed after 1 or 2 laps, and he's right on it now. Although Malinovsky's got into the party. I think Hosseini might have made a mistake as I was saying all that. And he's very much in the equation again for Yassi. I mean, I don't really know what is necessarily possible in that battle as it gets bigger and bigger. Of course, other things we need to focus on is who's going to finish 10th in this race. It does look like it's going to be the Dalkin Community car. Darren King behind the wheel at the moment, 12 seconds clear of the 49. Remember that Novikov in 12th position is your championship leader, and that being 1.1 seconds behind Goy, being 12.7 seconds. There's no way that they are going to be involved in that reverse grid. Does mean that they'll start the second race not a million miles away from their teammates in Bykov, who, with the top 10 reverse in the current spots, will obviously drop him down to 10th spot and might be able to assist his teammate, which I think they might need in that final lap, in that final race. I don't know what the points are going to look like going into that final race from this point. As you know what I'm always like, I say never trust a commentator's maths, and that does continue to this championship as well.
Well, yeah, I'll try and do something about it. But yeah, it is going to be tricky to figure that one out, because as we say, the drop weeks as well. It will make things tricky. We do know that, as I said earlier, the 42's points will count because they've already had a 0, and that's the drop round for them so far. So that is going to that's something to bear in mind. That the fact that even though Novikov's only scoring 16 points from this race at the moment, which is considerably less than the 62 team, their score will count. And if the 62 finishes where it is at the moment, then this score will definitely count for them as well. So it does look more and more like the main contenders, at the very least, will have their rounds count here from today, making our life a tad bit easier.
Well, it was a little bit of a squeeze from Hosseini. Malinovsky directly behind, trying to attack for it. It's kind of really allowed Murdasov to pull out a sizable gap to secure them another podium so far in the Coach Dave Seaman sprint. We're still with 16 minutes left to go. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We're still going to have, realistically, it should actually be 9 laps. They'll cross the line. I'm pretty sure Bykov will cross the line with a few seconds to go late in this race. But again, don't trust the commentators' maths. We know what this is like, but courtesy of the pit stops and stuff, it should be by about 3 or 4 seconds maybe that Bykov will cross the line to start what will be the in 9 laps. I think it'll be the 30, or should still be the 30th lap, which is kind of where we were expecting, 29th, 30th lap, about where we were expecting the race limit to be. Sasha Glatter still attacking Samir Foch for 8th place. I don't see anyone stopping Bykov right now. I am very curious where this next race is going to go, because obviously the reverse grid, without being able to change tyres, with it being still a fairly hot track temperature, 39 degrees Celsius, although dropping, who knows what's possible.
Who knows what is possible. It's getting into the evening now, 5 o'clock at Bathurst now. and the track temperature going down, making things a little bit more comfortable on the tyres, I suppose. Might help the BMW out ever so slightly, but let's see. You can't see the sun in the eyes becoming an issue, and the darkness, obviously, we're not going on for that long. So we're going to alleviate those problems. But yeah, track temperature certainly coming down and will continue to do so. But who is... I don't... Hard to see it changing anything unless somebody's got something drastically wrong at this early stage. So we'll see, basically, is all we can really say at this stage.
Are we kind of...
Yeah, just...
Oh, go on. No, go on. Carry on.
I was running out of things to say, really, but go on.
I was just going to say, are we going to end the evening without knowing who's going to be the champion, just purely based on how complicated it is with the drop scores? I understand why a drop score exists, and I understand especially why we're using it in this scenario, but I do not like drop scores because they just mean that it's really confusing going into the championship finale.
I would actually argue it's not actually that complicated, because as I mentioned, you could have a 0 for somebody, and then in which case that makes your life very easy. For example,
it's barely a drop score. Yeah, that's cheating, though.
Well, to be fair, I was actually looking at this a little bit earlier on, and coming into today, it would be the points would be a lot closer if we didn't actually have the drop rate, because as I mentioned multiple times, the 42 is not dropping any points from their score, so the 200 they actually have to their name is actually what they've earned, as opposed to for almost every other car in the entire field. It's slightly different. Yassi would be only 1 point behind, and BMW G2 would halve their 28-point margin back to SimWare.pro. So it would actually be 3 teams separated by 14 points going into today. However, we can complain about the fact it's not as close as it maybe could have been, but the poor, in relative terms, poor race for the 42 here at Novikov down in 12th is actually making our life very close in this final race coming up.
I think we as a commentary team need to hire someone ourselves that's just there to do the mathematics so that we're not looking like total idiots in championship finales. I think it would really help, which is typically it's typically your rule, your role rather, Ewan, sometimes on a couple of the broadcasts that we've done. You're the one that sat there in the background trying to run some numbers, trying to keep us in the loop.
Do it now.
No, well, I mean, yeah, you're trying to do it now whilst on the broadcast. Oh, no, there's a 42. That's going to be I think he might have... No, he did hit the wall. There is no doubt that 42 of Novikov has been into the barrier ever so slightly. Just the angle it came out there was overcooking Forest Elbow, Chaz Mostert style. That is not great for our champ leaders. It looks like they aren't going to continue to be our champion leaders heading into the final race of the season. And with them starting outside of the top 10, no longer a reverse grid, things are getting worse and worse for the SimWare.pro by Vides team. They could have had 2 cars in championship contention here. One of them could have been that 41 had it not been for some very serious issues late on in the Imola round, where they picked up 3 penalties in a very short period and then got a substantial one for this round. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big question of what could have been for the SimWare.pro camp at the moment, but there's still 1 race left in the championship. You just don't know.
Yeah, I'm afraid I've got more bad news for them, though. I'm not sure if I'm just seeing things, but it doesn't quite look like it's quite tracking straight, that Bentley, at the moment. To me, it does look a little bit damaged. And also, look at the gaps behind. There are some very small gaps, particularly to Riley, who's just in front. Steering does look just about straight, so I think he's got away with that. But there is certainly a scrape on the wall to account for in that Bentley at the moment. A couple of cars behind, obviously, got the 70 right behind them, and the 777 only 5 seconds behind. So Novikov can very easily drop down another 2 positions and lose another 4 points over the next 10 minutes.
I think we are being told that the damage for this car is worse than it looks. There is more to it, because obviously from what we're seeing here, it doesn't look like there's actually any damage on the front end of that car, but it's just been in the barrier once more going through Solomon Park, and now it's over the barrier. Big start. This is going to be a big one. Manages to catch it. That's the 2-foot hack save representing for the sim racing community. Does drop a position though to Riley and Issa. I do believe certainly was Riley coming through in the number 70 Volante car. Issa's way too far behind. But either way, not great. Also being told that Amir Hosseini in the RHG car has got past Murdasov. This car, the SMP Racing Merc, was comfortably clear of this group and now is right back a part of it with 10 minutes left to go.
Yeah, it's very close at this stage. Certainly getting through, but I don't think this is over by any stretch of the imagination. The last 10 minutes between these three is going to be absolutely on here. And who knows which way it is really going to go. Look at Malinowski as well in the background there in the 449. Came in with a 7-point advantage over the 62, which is up the road gaining points from them. 12 points being gained by them at the moment. And so they're now turning this into a 5-point deficit. However, with this overtake, they could get 2 points closer. So very important for the Mercedes hanging on to the back of this train as well to get through. Although Murtaugh does look like he's losing a little bit of pace here. Might have scraped the wall through Reed Park there. And now all of a sudden things are getting a bit difficult for Murtaugh. All of a sudden he's struggling.
Maybe overdid his tyres. That's kind of critical. Obviously the temperature, again, we've said it before a few times, we'll say it once more. The temperature is quite high around here, so the idea that you can overcook your tyres after just a few laps. There is Murtaugh once again going through the dipper. Wide, they're going to go side by side down towards Forest Elway. This is not a good place to do it, lads. That is Amir Hosseini's ticket to the podium as he's booked his flight and he's gone from this battle. Malinowski not able to get past Murtaugh, but here comes the slipstream that Murtaugh really desperately doesn't want to dish out. Malinowski alongside before they hit even the turning point for the chase. Flat out through, not far off 208, 250k. Little bit too much curb usage though. Murtaugh's pushed, or rather Malinowski's pushed over Murtaugh's nose. They manage to get through. Little bit odd there for Malinowski. A little bit. I'll take it back. It wasn't a curb. It was just a bump in the road over the crest.
It's just very bumpy there, yeah, especially on the inside line. You're not used to being out there. It was very weird and nearly a humongous accident as well. But thankfully, everybody held it together, and those bumps didn't cause too much of a problem. As further back, these two still fighting away, as they have been for the last half an hour or so. Finally down the inside for Glatter. It looks like he's finally got his way through on that Ferrari that has been holding him back for ages, and it looks like the Aston Martin going to join in on the party and head down the inside, get into what is ninth place. All of these guys are going to benefit, of course, from the reverse grid. They're basically jockeying for who's going to be on pole. Of course, they're not trying to finish 10th for the minute. That'll be a little bit ridiculous, but although we have seen it in the past, these guys are certainly going to be up towards the front and maybe have a chance of winning race 2. We'll see in about an hour's time, of course.
I mean, you say it's ridiculous, but if I was Samir Fox right now, I've dropped down from 8th position. I've gone through 9th and I'm now in 10th. I would back off of this group. I would genuinely be backing off 2-3 seconds, right, to the point where it's almost a bit too far for them to drop back that distance and just try and hang on to 10th place, because, you know, the reverse grid pole's a big deal. I think... Yeah, it's what I do. It saves us having the ridiculous finale like we had to the SimGrid VCA World Cup around here, where was it SimWare.pro, whatever the SimWare.pro Large Sport Roseneft car, that Aston Martin, whatever they were called that in that championship, I can't remember off the top of my head. Them and Niels Nyox in the BMW G2 eSports car battled out for 15th place the other way round, as they were desperate to finish in 16th place, and it was the single most ridiculous battle to the line that I've ever seen. It's just really silly. I don't think we'll see anything quite as mad, but it would be in that vein. That's why you back up a couple of seconds to make sure that they can't drop back into you.
Yeah, the problem in terms of, we don't want to see that again, of course. The problem that we have is there's a 13.5 second gap behind them, so it could well turn into that. However, I do kind of think that this Yas car, of course, the 75, does actually have an outside shot at winning the championship here today, so they will want every point they can get at this stage. If we take the SimWare.pro car out of it, then obviously they're only 28 points off second. That's very close to the likes of BMW G2 Esports and Yassi up front, so they will want to really gain every point they can. However, obviously they're losing a good 10-20 points on both of those cars at the minute, which is not ideal, but they've got an outside. They'll still have a mathematical chance heading into this final race. Going to be very difficult to tell who really has a mathematical chance here coming into this final race.
Oh!
Has to be said. Oh, my goodness me. Thankfully, Bikeoff was very aware and managed to get around. I hope Isaac Price did as well. Looks like he did.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty scary to have a car perpendicular to the track as you're going around one of the difficult circuits. I'm being told he has collected Malinovsky and Murdasov, which I can only tell you was always going to happen. You know, when you're riding around that part, you're essentially going through a fairly blind part of the circuit at high speed. There is a lot of damage on the front of Malinovsky's car. There was a fair amount since turn 1, though. We'd have to see what what really happened to the 111.
Yeah, we'll obviously try and pull up a replay and see what happened there, but it's so difficult, isn't it? Always so difficult when you're coming around that blind crest at Reed Park there. And well, not quite Reed Park yet, but you get the point. It's very, very tricky crests and blind corners and all sorts. You can't see in terms of both rejoining and avoiding someone who is rejoining. It's so tricky. Looks like they have indeed been collected, and Malinovsky looks like he's gotten away with it just about, and he's got 4th place, so he might be pretty pleased with how it's ended up in the end. But yeah, you don't want to see a battle end like that one, unfortunately, and it looks like it's ended a bit sour, I'm afraid, for Malinovsky and Murdasov. Let's hope Murdasov has got a car to get himself to the end with a top 5 finish here as well, because he does deserve it, although he's coming under big pressure now from the 77 and 82.
Yeah, Prime E-Racing really joining in the mix. There they are in the background in that McLaren. Of course, the 82 lesser problem. This is on board with Murdasov, and you'll see as they rise over this crest. Bang, there's a pink car just rejoining.
Oh, my.
Right, okay, so the Murdasov thing's a little bit like, that's rough. That is really rough for Murdasov. I don't know if Malinovsky kind of drove into the side and doored that 111 car. It kind of looked like he did from that angle.
Yeah, well,
a little bit.
Did a little bit. God, Murdasov's car looks ruined, doesn't it? There, looking at that front shot.
It was a big hit.
Big hit, yeah, absolutely. And he's feeling the effects of it quite dramatically there. You can see just wants to finish top 10, I suppose, at this stage, because that might be all he gets. He's scraping the wall out of Reed Park. It's an absolute disaster, and he's got 4 cars right behind him, including 44, which is obviously on a different lap, but it's here as well. Yeah, going to do well to finish inside the top 10. I think they're going to be able to, with only 3 minutes to go. That should be fine, and 2 laps to go at the line, or maybe 3 actually. But yeah, it's tricky to get finished inside the top 10. Although with the gaps, should be fine.
Yeah, just to clarify, we've got 2 minutes and 40 seconds left in this race, and our race leader is just coming down to the chase now. It'll be very tight on the line. I think we will get 3 laps to go. This isn't great for Murdasov, but should still be in contention for the reverse grid races. Here comes the Prime E-Racing car of Schur. There also comes Tinko van der Velde, also making that spot. That Bentley is not for position, so now we can sit there and think, right, he's got about 12 seconds back to Sasha Glatter. Also, sorry, I know we were talking about Samir Fox being up there for the reverse grid pole. It's not actually true. It's a battle between Gobby and Paulus in 11th position. That will become the reverse grid pole, courtesy of the penalty that will head the way of Tinko van der Velde for not being able to switch drivers through this race. So this, in effect, is that battle. Grip Hacks Engineering versus Carbon Sim Sport. Who wants to start on the final reverse grid pole of the season? It's going to be a tight battle.
This is the kind of battle for pole we actually want to see, because both of them going absolutely all out for this one because of that penalty, as you say. It's also going to give another 2 points to the 42 as well, so that's something to chalk up as well and factor into the equation. But yeah, Van der Velde nevertheless has driven very well, I have to say. Despite joining the server very late here today and qualified well, has raced pretty well, might still end up with a top 5 on the road, even if the results won't quite reflect that.
Which I'd still be very impressed with. Yes. We're being told that Paulus is going for the move down in 11th, doesn't quite manage to get through again. This will be the reverse grid pole, so a lot's at stake. I don't know if they necessarily know how much is at stake for this. That's kind of the critical thing, because they might not even realise.
Yeah, it's very possible. Well, I certainly wouldn't. If I was driving, I wouldn't have a clue.
Do you have a clue anyway?
Well, no, not really.
You did say that you'd rather a pie than a barbecue, which I will just bring up on air.
Not in an Australian circuit, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're in trouble, mate.
I am in trouble. But I was in enough trouble before. But yeah, this fight is going to rumble on for the final 2 laps. As you said, it is going to be 2 more laps. Sorry, 1 more lap. Maths. 41 coming across the line now with seconds remaining, about 10 seconds remaining. So we are going to get the final lap once more. We might get 1 lap shorter during the next race because at the reverse grid, how much slower is that going to make the race? Because only 10 seconds is quite tight. If there's a lot of fighting for the race win, then we could see 1 lap shorter for the second race. But we're hearing the conditions are going to be cooler, obviously, because we're cooling down at the minute. So it could be the same as well. So we'll see on that one. But for now, these guys are just focusing on the lap they have remaining in this battle for 10th position. It is all going to come down to this time next lap, I'd imagine, where there's going to be a big dive from the number 7.
I mean, also remember in the next race they don't get to switch tyres, don't get to add fuel, so it's just the driver swap and things such as that. So, I don't know. Maybe we will go a lap shorter. We're on the we're going for 30 laps. We're on the 30th and final, and Baikov is heading over the mountain one last time, looking to make it 9 from 9 on our different winners in the Coach Dave Super Sprint.
It's been a very interesting race. It took a little while to warm up, but things have gotten very interesting here towards the end. There's been a few incidents here and there, which we don't like to see, of course, but there's been some nice fighting as well. I have to say, this particular region of the kind of order has been very interesting. Sasha Glatter taking ages and trying for ages to get through on that 75 Ferrari, eventually managing it. And they're even closing on Murdasov here. That is how damaged this car is. Look at him just creeping around at the moment, trying to get to the end. He is going to, but not without difficulty. Comes down the dipper for one final time, and we'll be very glad when this race is over.
That was dicey, it must be said. That was dicey again. Dalton Community looking to the inside. The race leaders, though, the number 41 coming through the final section of the racetrack, now towards the final corner at Murray's, and we are going to crown our 9th different winner in 9 races in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. This time it's the number 41 Simware.pro, Mikhail Baikov and Avalads crossed the line to finally win at Spa a month after they attempted it last, and the battle for 7th will be really tight. Sasha Glatter moved out of the way. Darren King trying to fight his way through. He's side by side in the exit of the corner. Doesn't manage to keep alongside that Aston. Great effort though from Darren King. Sasha Glatter in that racework car is going to hang on to what will become 6th place, courtesy of the 130-second time penalty to Tinko van der Velde for not finishing the full pit lane sequence, courtesy of not switching driver. That'll drop them right towards the back. And it does mean that our reverse grid pole, that battle between Gobby and Paulus, it will be Gobby, it will be the number 49 on reverse grid pole. Good for them.
Yeah, great for them. And it'll be interesting to see. This is the car we're really interested in, though. Championship leaders coming into this. They have lost their championship lead, although it is exceptionally close coming into this final race. I've just done the maths. I think it's right, so I'll roll with it. The 62 car, coming into today second in the championship, gaining that second place. They're going to be leading the championship by only 2 points ahead of the 42, which has just about survived to be second, only 2 points behind. And Yassi are 3 points behind them in third. There's the top 3 cars separated by 3 points heading into this final race.
I mean, that's what we want from a championship fight. All coming down towards the wire, and especially at such a circuit steepled in the history of motorsport. It really is a proper place to end a championship. It just feels right coming in. I did say, and I understand why, our original championship finale was slated to be at Imola, because obviously it then aligned with the Coach Dave 1000 that was there at the same week on the weekend. The thing is, though, is that Bathurst is much more of a championship finale circuit to me, so I would have switched those two around. But, it's Michael Hamlet making the decisions around here, not me. So, and I think everyone is grateful that is absolutely the case. But we do get to have our championship finale. I remember, as well, these are public roads, essentially. It's a bit of a slippery slope, that one, because they are public roads. But it is kind of like they were purpose built to be in this shape. It's not as if they just magically formed. Well, obviously no road magically. That'd
be weird,
forms,
wouldn't it?
I mean? But it wasn't as if they just went, do you know what? We'll have a road that basically goes to nowhere, and that'll be fine. It was designed to be a racetrack, and it is just so happens that it is actually public road as well. But what a track it is! Greatest street circuit, greatest racetrack.
Yes, it is, if you can call it a street circuit, I suppose.
I
Not only does it go to nowhere, by the way, it goes in a ridiculous direction to get to nowhere as well. It is completely ridiculous. But yeah, it is certainly part of the road system, and it is a great circuit, as we've just seen. What a championship finale we're going to have as well here. All three of those championship contenders I just mentioned, 3 points apart, heading into this final race. They're all going to be scattered through the field, right towards the bottom end of the top 10, and outside of it, indeed, in the case of the 42 as well. It is going to be an absolutely barnstorming finale, and I absolutely can't wait for it. I think it is going to be between those three as well, by the way. I mean, the 41 did keep its hopes alive by winning that race and adding 50 points to its tally, but they're good 35 points back or so heading into this one final race. When it's 50 points for a win, it is very difficult, especially starting from 10th.
Well, we will step aside just for a very brief moment because we've got 1 more hour of racing left to go in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. It's been a fantastic championship and it's all heading down to the wire. Once we're back, we're going to have a little interview with Mikhail Bykov. But until then, we'll just step aside. Well, hello again and welcome back. It is finale time, and with 1 more race left on the horizon here in the Coach Dave Super Sprint, we are in for a thriller on the mighty mountain. But before we get into the action, I think we should catch up with someone who knows what it takes to win around here, because Mikhail Bykov is about to join us in the commentary booth. Wow, after a fantastic victory, it's such a difficult circuit, but Mikhail Bykov stands with us. Talk to us about what it takes to win around here.
Hi, my teammate did the main work, and I just need to get there. The lap podcast in front of a little, and so in general, it turned out quite easy.
What do you think's possible in this race after the top 10 reverse?
I think we can fight to top 3, top 5 maybe.
Championship wise, are you eyeing up that? Are you thinking that that is completely possible? Are you really targeting it?
Oh, I know.
Well, I know the race is coming up, so we won't actually take up too much of your time.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Good
Okay,
luck.
okay.
Don't worry, I'll let
Thank
you go. No
Thank
worries.
you.
Well, thank you to Mikhail Bykov at least for joining us. He is busy because he got to start this race, mind, which we'll be going to gridding in a couple of minutes. So I do not blame him for wanting to run out of the commentary booth. Also, we're not exactly the most interesting people for him to speak to right now. Because I don't blame him, is what I'm saying.
No, I don't blame him either. He, as I say, bigger things on his plate coming up for Bykov. I mean, as I said, their championship contention is very limited at this stage, if you can call it that. 37 points back heading into this final race. As I said, it's too far. They need a top 2 to even stand a chance, and that is with the others having disasters. So you never know. But they are one of the few still in contention. It really is very well poised, though. Only 3 points separating the top 3 is outrageous after 9 races, despite a drop week as well. By the way, none of those top 3 teams are going to have their drop week this week because they've already all scored better than they have done in their worst round in just this one race. So they all did relatively well, or well enough, I suppose, for that not to be a factor, making our life a little bit easier. But it also makes this championship extremely exciting.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that you'll be doing the maths behind the scenes to at least try and bring us rough championship standings. But I think we all kind of really need to hammer it home that number 1, we're not very good at that. And number 2, you're a lot better than me. Don't worry. But number 2, also, all of this will be very provisional. Race control will have to look over everything and such. So as much as we've got our dramatic championship finale, nothing is a guarantee until we not only cross the line, but also wait a little bit as well for everything to be fully decided.
Yeah, we've got to wait for a lot to happen here. And of course, we've got to figure out how to get through to first lap at Bathurst as well once again. We got away with it on the first race. Are we going to get away with it for a second time? The field is a little bit more all over the place in this particular race, as we've seen with the reverse grid. That often does lead to accidents at any circuit, never mind this one. So it's all about picking your way through the opening laps here and then getting yourself into the right position. I have to say, if I was to make a prediction at all, I would actually go for the Yas Heat car in terms of winning the championship. I know they are third coming into today, or coming into the final race, but they're only 3 points back, and they've got the best starting position of any of the top 3 cars in the standings. So I'm going to give it to them for my pick for the championship.
Ooh, I'm going with the 62. I'm going with the BMW GT Esports. I think they've got the pace right now, and they've got the momentum, which I think momentum in this is critical, isn't it?
It is important. I mean, although saying that, obviously we've seen this with the BMW already. You mentioned it earlier on, and they're continuing on with that. But I don't know. This first lap does worry me for everybody, particularly those involved in the standings. It's very close. So it's very kind of difficult to get through the opening lap, of course. So we'll see really. But starting, what are they going to be, 9th? The BMW? Yeah, it's a difficult first lap for them. But if they get through, then they've got every chance.
But with it being a car which seems faster in a straight line speed, I don't know what's possible for them. Either way, they've got Isaac Price behind the wheel this time, and it's no disrespect to Charlie Crosser, but it might mean that if they do win the championship, we might get a half-interesting interview at the end of it, which was one thing that we did lack back in Imola. No disrespect again to Robbie Stableford.
No disrespect.
Okay, fine. Let's just disrespect. That interview was pants, and we'll just slam it right out there. They have said that there's going to be a bit of work behind the scenes, so I'm very curious to interview them once again, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that they do improve in that side. Because if they could talk the way that they race, we would be here all day with great interview answers. Because man, they are so quick and such a great driver pairing in, of course, Stapleford and Crossland, and with Isaac Price in the mix as well, being really a part of G2 Esports now after not really finding a home for a while. The Welshman is a very talented driver and has shown that time and time again in his large area of esports racing, which has not been a short list.
Yeah, it's a great driver to get in, isn't he? Really, if you're looking for a kind of a driver to substitute himself in and do a job, and Isaac Price would certainly be up there, and he has done a job so far in this race, in the first part of this event here tonight. But as I said, yes, it has struggled to find a team to stay with for more than or for a decent amount of time. Although I say this all the time, I've obviously never spoken to Isaac himself, so I don't know if this is the case, whether he literally just has struggled to find a real place where he feels like he belongs. But some drivers actually do like changing things up fairly often, and would not rather stay with a team for a very long. We see drivers who are synonymous with teams who are kind of been there for years and years, or almost never going to leave before they end up leaving sim racing as a whole, in their career. But others decide that they would like a change of scenery every year or so. So I don't know whether that's been the case for Price, but he's certainly done a job in the first half of this race, and it will certainly need to keep his wits about him in the opening lap of this one.
I mean, he's sort of been around to various teams. He's spent a fair amount of time on and off at Williams. Of course, G2 Esports is a team that he has returned to. I remember back in 2018 he drove for G2 Esports when it was the FA G2 Esports. It was GT's first escapades into sim racing. Alongside FA, meaning Fernando Alonso, if you didn't really work that one out. Then there was a bit of a separation there, and then G2 kind of with their own little thing. Then obviously they partnered up with BMW. They've run a couple of other teams through the BMW G2 Esports camp, and that vein. They run G2 run the Red Bull Racing esports camp as well, out in iRacing and on RF2 as well. It's a well-rounded camp, but now Isaac Price kind of returning to it. I'm sure it's a very, very different team that he left a good few years ago. But yeah, I kind of get it. Some drivers like to stick. Either way, I think we need to stop waffling on and focus on what's at hand here in this race. It's going to be a tight one. Ewan, remind everyone of because I don't want to do it because I know that I'm going to be way off on the points. Remind everyone of the championship standings. Go.
Go. The BMW G2 Esports team that you just saw there leading the standings 214. They've got 2 over this car, the 42 of Novikov in the standings, and Yassi are 3 points behind. That's the 449 starting from 7th. They're only 3 points behind coming into today. There are probably going to be, including the 41, 37 points back. There probably are maybe 1 or 2 others as well who are in mathematical contention, but for me it's between those 3.
Like I say, who knows what will actually arise from all of this. My money is still going to be on the BMW G2 Esports car. This car was one of those ones that's been removed from championship contention, really out of completely no fault of their own. Darren McCormack is in the server though, so we can actually see McCormack into the race for the first time this evening after power cut in the first race. But at least the 80 will get out for one final hurrah in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. We've spoken about the championship, but who's going to win the race, Ian?
Who is going to win the race? Well, who knows, to be honest. It's a real mixed up grid. I think I'm going to kind of further my championship prediction with the Yas Heat team, and I'm going to say they're going to win the race as well to clinch the title. Any one of those 3 teams to win the race, by the way, will win them the title. So that's the situation they're in. But yeah, I'm going to go for them for the Yas Heat team doubling up from 7th place.
I mean, that's a bold prediction. We'll have to wait and see. They'll ride their way through the final corner. The Dalton Community car is a little bit offline there. That's Darren King that's supposed to be starting from 4th, as they'll all prepare themselves one final time. An hour onto the clock as we ride into the night. A bit of sunset around. We all love a bit of a sunset as well, and it's just the perfect way to end a championship finale. A champion season that has just delivered time and time again with 9 different race winners as we head into the 10th, and we're going to get 10 from 10. And who is going to win the championship as well? 1 hour onto the clock, once again in the Coach Dave Super Sprint Race 10 of the season. As we get underway here at Bathurst, the Gripax engineering car starts from pole position with Samir Foch in the Yas Heat car alongside in that front row. The 919 race winners at Barcelona fully alongside, forcing that Ferrari off. Down into turn 1 at Hell Corner. We're side by side all the way back in the pack, but everyone survived the first one as we rise up the hill on Mountain Straight towards Griffin's Bend.
Yeah, very decisive move from Murtasoff into turn 1 there to make his way into second. Even looking at first, coming into Griffin's Bend for the first time. They're very wide from King. Looking at that one, and it's going to cause an almighty stack up into the cutting. All the action is going to be back here, and here it is. Looking at all of this right now, Malinowski has not had a great start. It's very conservative, looking to just keep all of his panels straight and keep that car in a safe place on this opening lap. Not a terrible idea. There's been a bit of contact further behind the BMW.
BMW!
Contact, it's in the wall. The championship leader's in the wall.
I did curse them. I'm so sorry. I don't really say it's cursed. That is rough, though, for the BMW G2 Esports car. That is one of our championship contending cars into the barrier coming into Quarry Bend.
Surely.
An absolute smash.
Look, well, they're getting going again now, sort of, but they're not going very quickly. They're a long, long, long way down. My goodness me, that is a big moment in this championship. They were leading coming into this race, and all of a sudden, Yas Heat have matters very much in their own hands, and obviously SimGrid.pro as well, if they can get up there.
Well, SimGrid.pro, Williams Esports, Dara McCormack, up 5 positions at the moment. Dara McCormack on an absolute mission to try and rescue at least some form of decent result here for Williams Esports this afternoon. There is Isaac Price being dropped down your leaderboard, down towards the final spot. There's a big smash. Oh, and the 41 is collected. The Dolkin Community car, he goes straight over at the chase. Mikhail Baikov manages to wrestle it back onto the circuit, but that was a big slam right at the perfect angle. Dara McCormack's gone for a complete rallycross move, turning this circuit into a very different one. A bit of a flash to the lights of the Sim Racing Masterclass car as he leads down the inside of TF Souvlaki in the final corner and completely musters him off the final one. Just rough racing. And look at the Ferrari going on the attack in the background. That'll be Butterweck.
My goodness, this is absolutely on. We were fearing this run down Mountain Straight towards Griffin's Bend, but it was actually after that where all of it kicked off. And that we're hopefully going to get a few looks at some things that have gone on, because there's a lot that has been going on in this opening lap. People going off everywhere, and the battling continues a little bit further down in the order. This is just outside the top 10, and both cars on the outside line into the wall, showing the effect of the camber there. The outside line, you don't want to be out there because you'll be in the wall as Novikov gets himself into 9th.
I mean, again, a super start for the 42. Whether they have the pace to keep this up. Of course, had a few bits of drama in the previous race as well. Look at the Ren Welton Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition car as well, attacking the number 7 of Paulus. Also in the background, that one being one of the Carbon Sim Sports McLarens. Just there in 11th spot. We'll go side by side as it's Sasha Glatter mounting the curb just a little bit, going through McPhillamy and then down through Skyline, down the S's, really trying to attack Samir Foch in the Yas Heat Ferrari right now. A little bit of a tap from Malinowski though into the barrier. I think Baikov tapped it as well.
Yeah, a bit of a scrape there coming down the dipper there and into the wall for Malinowski. Goodness me, this is a very, very dramatic opening to this race. We don't even have 2 laps just yet of this one. Quite remarkable as Glatter and Foch continue their battle from what they had towards the end of the last race. It's carrying on again with Malinowski watching on from behind. Let's see everybody breathe in over the chase. A lot more controlled this time around than it was from Baikov last time, but the 41 car has suffered almost no damage because he's here as well as the Ferrari goes for a spin.
I mean, for me, at least for my money, from that angle that we saw, Sasha Glatter gave plenty of room on the inside. I think the Ferrari just washed out a little bit, understeered into the side of the McLaren and just tapped Sasha Glatter. Foch has gone for a spin. A bit of a shame there. Dara McCormack up to 12th position after starting 20th. 2 laps at Bathurst, +4 on each. Right up the order, absolutely superb. Now on the rear end of Behrman. Not too far away from the back end of the top 10.
Really, really great job from McCormack here. He's on the outside line again, coming down Mountain Straight from Behrman, but he's going to be able to get through in the slipstream, side by side, and the crash up in front. Not sure who's involved. Malinowski was around in the area. It looks like Bykov off again.
Yeah, it's Bykov. 100% was Bykov. Bykov off in the barrier, one of the SimWare.pro cars. So an extra position for Novikov. The 41 that was struggling for championship contention is now way out of it. The 42 continues to move forward. Malinowski and Novikov right up there in 6th and 7th. I mean, I don't like saying this, but I think you might be right about the Yaz Heat car. Going so strong in this race right now, already working their way up the order, and maybe it is their day.
Maybe certainly the pieces, are falling into place at this stage. They came into this race third. At the moment, they're overturning their 1 point gap, their 1 point deficit to the 42, and turning into a 1 point margin. After 10 races, if things were to end right now, the championship would come down to only 1 point. What a remarkable season and a remarkable finale we're having here at Bathurst.
Although one thing that would ruin the whole championship, at least for me, is that Murdasov is leading. Not that I have anything against SMP, the 919, or Murdasov, but it's the fact that it'd be the same. We've already had this race winner. I want a 10th different race winner, so I'm really pushing at the moment for Grip Hacks Engineering to get up there and take the victory. There's a little look. So for me, Isaac Price runs out towards the Carbon Sim Sport car that is already basically against the wall, which, as much as I don't really want to just throw Isaac Price under the bus in this scenario, I do feel that one is more on the Welshman's shoulders.
It's hard to tell from that angle, really. It really does depend. Does the McLaren come off the wall there towards the BMW in some kind of defence, some kind of late defence, or does Price just misjudge that one and run the car slightly too wide into the McLaren? Obviously, the BMW was just behind, had the nose behind, and obviously going to come out worse in that contact. But yeah, it's a very 50-50 one. It's had a big bearing on this race. The 62 way down, not out of it, I wouldn't say, but they are. They're not even inside the top 20 just yet.
Yeah, it's going to be, and they've also got a fair amount of damage. We'll see again on replay. Let's see what happens to Bykov, who was side by side. There was car contact between themselves and the Dorking community car that then delivered the bill straight into the rear end. I don't really know how to judge the first bit. The second bit, they're both basically out of control at that point, so I don't think there's any real blame on Bykov's part for that second bit. It's just trying to wrestle the car back onto the racetrack. A 4-second lead for Murdasov, as Gobby just does not have the speed. Hearing that Dara McCormack is also off running through McPhillamy, which is such a high-speed commitment part of the track. It's where we saw Valentin Barriere having a few issues earlier on. Yeah,
it is. That's a real shame to see for him. And it looks like it might be over for McCormack. He's down to 14th. Has he lost any... Well, he's not lost any car parts, but he might have lost a bit of pace. Yeah, that's a real shame to see for him. He was on an absolute mission before for Williams Esports. It's all falling apart ever so slightly for him now, though. Although he's in the slipstream with this McLaren here, and he's not doing a too bad job.
I mean, again, started in 20th and then got up to inside the top 10, now back down to 14th. It's win or lose at this point, and was really going aggressively, and when you're going aggressive you're taking a lot of risk. There is another little move, so clearly the car is still alright to some degree. Gets around the outside of Contagianis, around the chase, and now to the inside, or has it already done before they get into Murray's. So clearly there is still pace in the car, but after what sounds like it was a fairly large whack for the Williams Esports car, we'll have to see how much pace is left in the tank.
Yeah, we will indeed. Malinowski, meanwhile, up front of the field, has actually got in front of Glatter and Schur at this stage, so he's up into 4th place and put some cars in between himself and Novikov at the moment, which is very important for him, of course. I think it won't be too long until Malinowski actually finds himself in 2nd, because those two cars just up in front are really struggling to make their way through, or in terms of keep pace with the Yas Heat at the moment, I believe, anyway. So Hosseini gets through. I think he'll get away now, but I don't think it'll be too long before Malinowski gets through on the 49 as well.
I mean, that Yas Heat car is very, very fast, so we'll have to wait and see what Malinowski can do. Here is the big tap. Let's see what happens. Big slide in the rear end, so drops it on the rear, slides over the gravel trap, and then bang into the barrier, just as he was trying to be a little bit too greedy on the loud pedal. I mean, I've seen worse crashes up there. I've seen better ones, so I don't know what position, what condition rather, that car's in. Might be very, very lucky.
he might just about get lucky, yeah, but it's you want to avoid that at all cost anyway. I mean, I thought he had it actually when he went onto the gravel initially. I actually thought he'd gathered things up nicely and he was going to be able to gather things up without hitting the wall, but in the end he was not able to do that, and there was contact made, so that is going to hurt him just a little bit as Malinowski tries the move down the inside at the chase on the McLaren. Ooh. And I think he's got it done. It's not gets straight into the back of Glatter. That surely is going to be a penalty.
Yep, I mean, if I have ever seen a really silly move, really, for the 42, that would be one, because if that is going to be, I think because of the fact they rejoined and it was okay, it might get away with just a warning. But either way, such an unnecessary bit of car contact when you're trying to battle for the challenge, when you're looking for any reason. All that's doing, if that does become a penalty, it just hands it straight over to the 449. Unfortunately for me, that means that you're right, which does irritate me slightly, but I'll allow it. The 383 and the 41, instant on lap 1, will be investigated post-race. Of course, the 383 being the Dolkin community car and the 41 being the Simware.pro car as well. Oh, and the 42's been off.
42.
That's it.
Surely that's got to be it. Surely at Griffin's Bend again, claiming another victim, I'm afraid, in this race. Novikov drops down even further, I'm afraid. Sometimes you just know that it's not your day, and Simware.pro must be starting to feel a bit of that at the moment. Their first race didn't go particularly well. They could have, I know they didn't have great pace, but they didn't maximise what they had, and I'm afraid problems again for them on this second race as well. It's a real shame for them, but they're still involved in the battles further behind.
Well, Paulus is clearly having issues here because Dara McCormack just went around the outside of him, going through like Sullivan Park and down towards McPhillips Sea Park as well. So clearly Paulus has some issues. A penalty's been dished out to the 777 Sim Racing Masterclass car of Issa. That's running in 9th position. But yeah, clearly there is an issue on Paulus. So dropping right back now, back with Contagianis, who's on the rear end of the number 42, who's managed to get past. Novikov making a little bit of progress back again, but still it did seem like there was a fairly sizable off and a fairly sizable hit going into Griffin's Bend. Now the Grip Hacks engineering car has the Prime E-Racing car to worry about, and I say it's been a great round for Prime E-Racing. They've been looking very strong around here.
Yeah, they have. This 77 team with a strong result. Was it a 6th place maybe in the first race? It was a strong result anyway for them, and they're looking at another top 5 here, getting through on Gobi, who is struggling in this first part of this race, I have to say. Obviously fought so hard to get this pole position at the end of race 1, but now that they've got it, beginning to struggle, trying to hold on to the top McLaren honour, but that doesn't look like it's going to last too much longer. As Isaac Price finally finds himself back in the points again, but only one of them. With the way it's standing at the moment, he needs to actually beat Malinowski. Not even a 4th place would be good enough at this stage.
But all they're doing right now is they are staying out, right? They're pushing as hard as they can, still battling for the championship. If they can keep going, if there are issues later on that fall the way, we've seen a couple of issues for the 42, if there are big issues for the 449, like what we had towards the end of the previous race, you just don't know. And it's kind of one of those things where we're not expecting an is that Glock kind of moment, but you just do not know. And when the points coming into this race were so tight, just keep going. Regardless of issues, just keep going. Do not give up. And they're not the team to give up anyway, and no one would in a championship final this. I'm not saying that. Oh, there we go. Race work. That would be the car that Sasha Glatter is in the 91. So there's one spot dropping down the order.
Yeah, trying to get going again from there as well is going to be an absolute nightmare. It looks like, he's just going to have to wait, isn't he, really? I'm afraid, as we look back from Essa once again. Obviously, confirmation, got that penalty on the left-hand side there with 5 seconds. But McCormack surely into the chase, pulls out in the Mercedes and should be making his way through here, although it's going to be a pretty tight one again.
Yep, side by side around the outside. Got to be big on the brakes there, but the McLaren is so good on the brakes that there's just no way to make that spot. Of course, that was a bit of a snap as well there from Issa running around the chase, but Still, Darren McCormack, despite the issues, is still on an absolute charge. It was these two that had an issue earlier on, because you can see it's in between car 80 and car 777, causing a collision. 777 received a 5-second time penalty, and that's where the issues really had arisen. That's dropped McCormack down the order. Of course, then he had the big slide, the tap of the barrier, but still he's rising his way back up, and there is Novikov. A 10-second time penalty to Alexander Novikov in the number 42. It's not for an issue into the chase, it's for an issue into turn 2. The Griffin's Bend, the one that we've just gone round, an issue there with the number 7 car.
Paulus.
That's Paulus, yes, which is where Paulus probably got that damage from. So for me, for the 42, that's them out completely in the championship. They're already miles behind Malinovsky, and now have been given a 10-second time penalty as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think they are definitely out of it, but I'm just puzzled as to when that happened. Did we see that? I mean, I can't remember it, but so much has happened in the first 15 minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if I've forgotten it, because there's been so much going on. I think he actually might get away with what happened to the chase, because
Agreed.
He actually redressed the position. I know he did a big bump into the back of the McLaren there. We did redress the position. However, another McLaren, I think it was Riley in the 70, got through on both of them. Actually overtook both of them, so he might still receive a smaller penalty, probably not 10 seconds, but you never know what's going to happen really with regards to the stewards' decision. So we'll wait on that one. But yeah, for me, I agree. Novikov and the 42 team going to need a bit of a miracle from here.
I mean, I just don't know. I don't really have any words. Either way, we've got some side-by-side for the 777 now as an extra position. Rem Welton. Oh, here comes the opportunity for Darren McCormack. 1, 2, boom! Up he goes. 7th position now for Darren McCormack. Absolutely superb. Just read that brilliantly as the two ahead were tripping up over each other. Behrman and Issa open the door. McCormack gets 7th.
He read that situation like a child's book, didn't he? It was absolutely obvious to him what was going to happen, and he swept through with absolute ease as well. It was fantastic to watch, up to 7th place, and now he can go on the charge up towards the 3 McLarens and maybe knock on the door of a top 5 here. Wouldn't bet against him possibly getting it as well. It's been a wonderful drive from McCormack from the front to a little bit further back, and then he's coming back to the front again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what McCormack can get from here, but if he keeps charging like this, obviously a big gap now to the next car. That's kind of the critical thing, is that there is a fairly sizable gap. But if he and Tinko van der Velde can grab themselves, I mean, a top 5, a podium, is it possible? Is it on the cards? Maybe so. It's 5 seconds down to the next car, clear that group, and then an extra 2.5 seconds. I just don't know. Getting told in our ear that Malinovsky is getting a penalty with Smith Fosh, what, the other Yazheat car? I'm not sure what happened there.
Well, Fosh did go around, didn't he? He did spin around. Was it the contact? Did Malinovsky make contact with him to happen that at the chase? It was a few laps ago. Was Malinovsky the one that made him go? Because obviously you said at the time, well, Glatter gave him enough room there. Well, that might have been true, but did Malinovsky get into the back of Fosh there? That has meant there is a penalty to them.
Well, there we go. Well, that could add things, more drama in the championship. Maybe that could add to our is that Glock moment if there's more issues on the horizon. Either way, Jonathan Riley is just trying to attack Gobby now. And next one, I mean, you said that Gobby was the highest placed McLaren and might not hang on to it for too long. We were obviously looking at Tobias Schur in the number 77 Prime E-Racing car. Jonathan Riley, though, has rolled onto the scene of the Volante Acertec SimSport car. Volante, by the way, are being rebranded. I cannot remember what the team name is. I think it's Visceral Esports. They're joining another esports team, which would make it the 4th or 5th different team name that they've had in 2 years, which is mad in itself. But either way, focusing on the priorities, focusing what is at hand, Jonathan Riley trying to grab 4th spot.
Trying on the outside line of turn 2 as well, which is like banging your head against a wall, really, so he's not going to be able to do that on that occasion. Gobby, though, putting much up a better fight against his fellow McLarens than he did against some of the others. I saw the way Husseini didn't get through easily, but Murdasov had a fairly run-of-the-mill kind of pass, and Malinowski didn't have too much trouble either, but against his fellow McLarens he is finding life a little bit easier. Riley finding life quite difficult actually, and this battling all will allow McCormack into the equation, I would imagine, because he looks to be very, very quick compared to the rest of this field, really, not only these three. So this battle is going to rumble on. Riley's got to find a way through though, and he nearly did into the chase last time.
Well, the sun has very much set here at Bathurst. We'll take a look once again. This is on board with Malinowski, and this is why Malinowski received that penalty. So they're side by side ahead. And this is kind of where we were saying, like Sasha Glatter gave, yeah, there's plenty of room there. And it is Malinowski. That is why Foch went for that spin then. We didn't quite catch that. But Malinowski is the car that made contact, and that's why they've received the 10-second time penalty. I get it. It was their mistake.
Was their mistake, and it's obvious now that we've seen that replay from that camera angle there that there definitely was contact. Malinowski at the moment would drop down the order, probably 8th place he would drop down to as things stand. That is still enough because Novikov himself has a 10-second penalty as well. Are they really realistically looking over their shoulder at Isaac Price at the moment? Not really. So despite the penalty for 2 of our 3 championship contending cars and an issue for the other, it does still look like the Ass Heats have the advantage.
Oh, there's a look back to the inside from Riley. Oh, that's it. That's a penalty for sure for Riley. Straight into the rear end of Gobby down into T1. That's McCormack through. That is also Issa through in the background. Jonathan Riley, I don't think anyone else is to blame for that, and I don't think anyone else could be to blame for that. I think that's about as blatant a slam dunk as I've ever seen.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, in his defence, I do feel like it was not intentional, at least. Because I just think he made a misjudgment into turn 1. It's still a penalty, and so he's still going to feel the effects of that one, I'm afraid. So, yeah, like you say, pretty slam dunk. But either way, he is through into 4th, I suppose, and I think he will be able to go a little bit quicker now as well. I think he was being held up.
Well, the penalties, by the way, I was going to say they are rolling in right now. Being told now here they have already equalled the same level of penalties that we had from race 1, which I shouldn't be shocked by, because you've commentated on a few of these. I've commentated on most of the season with the exception of Zandvoort. Every single time we do a race 2 in this, it is chaos, absolute chaos.
It's reverse grid racing. It's reverse grid racing. You see this sometimes in any series, really. If you have a particularly messed up qualifying session where cars are out of position all of a sudden, if the cars are not in the order that they're supposed to be in terms of pace, then the likelihood of incidents becomes more likely because of the speed difference between the cars is bigger than what you would say. No, obviously we're talking fine margins, of course, but these little things add up quite dramatically when the cars are quite so close together, and so a lot of incidents do happen. And then I do feel like a snowballing effect kind of happens, because you see it's some kind of incident going on, and then everybody gets a rush to the head, and it all kind of continues on and snowballs out of control almost if things get too wild. So yeah, I mean it's reverse grid racing, and it happens very often.
Isaac Price nearly hit the rear end of Samir Foch. I don't think Foch would be pretty good with that one coming through the cops then. Very much the wrong track. Through the chase, Samir Foch nearly got tapped on the rear end there from Isaac Price. Price really trying to attack this now. You can see got a few ahead, got Foch, got Sackness, got Herbeniau, all kind of one at a time. Even the gaps where you look at them, there's only really a second between each. Really all the way up to about the top 10. There is the first one for Isaac Price to tick off. This car, despite having a bit of damage, does seem to still have the straight line speed, fully around the outside, but way too deep onto the brakes going into Griffin's Bend.
Yeah, the problem he's got there is the 75 is a very good car, very strong car. Yassit Rachel coming into the event today were 6th place in the championship and have won the opener back all those months ago. So not a bad car at all, but so they're going to find things very difficult to get through. Isaac Price's problem here is not the gaps between the cars. It's not overtaking necessarily, even though he is finding it slightly tricky at the moment. The problem he has is the gap in terms of on the road to Malinowski. That is a big gap. I know the intermediate gaps are not big, but in terms of gap car to car there, taking all the others out of the equation, it is too big, really. Isaac Price does need more than that 10-second penalty for Malinowski here to really win this championship.
Yeah, it needs an issue for Malinowski, right? And to be fair, even probably less so that he needs an issue from Novikov. Because I do think that Isaac Price will catch Novikov for a few reasons. Number one, that Bentley is not particularly the fastest around here. Number two, it has a 15-second time penalty. And number three, I think Isaac Price has a bit of red mist here and is absolutely flying. So I think it's likely that there goes Novikov trying to get around the outside. Is that? No, it's not a back marker. It's Behrman dropping back a couple of positions. Obviously dropped past Darren King on the run down into the chase, and now drops past Novikov. So Novikov inside the top 10 now in that SimGrid.pro by Vides. One of your cars battling for the championship right now.
Last, and that Renfrew to Aston Martin dropping a couple of places from outside the top 10 there in a matter of corners, and having the 34 for company as well now. But yeah, at least Novikov back inside the top 10 again, although that 15-second penalty, I'm pretty sure he's going to drop them behind Isaac Price in this one. So BMW are going to get back to second in the championship for what that's worth, but still not close enough to the main rivals for this one. It'll be interesting to see how they play this, really. A bit of a gap has opened up in front of him, so earlier he might have thought, I'm going to stay out here because... go in early here because I'm stuck behind the 75, but actually he's not anymore, and there's a bit of a gap in front of him, so I think he might stay out that little bit longer now.
Well, obviously all of them wrestling it to the limit as the night is very much upon us here at Bathurst. I also think, by the way, with the level of battling that we've had, I don't think we are going for 30 laps in this race. I mean, yes, sure, the lap times might be a bit quicker. Maybe we are, but it's going to be a bit tight.
It's the race winner that really matters, and Murdasov didn't have a particularly arduous journey to the front. He started third, got one of the cars off the start, and he was past Gobi, I think it was, who was leading at the time, fairly quickly. So I actually do think we're going to get 30 laps again, purely because of Murdasov. Everybody else is obviously murdering each other, ironically. But yeah,
nice.
Thank you.
That was great. That was really
awful,
good.
Actually.
That was so good.
It's not his name.
It was just bad, man. I love it. That was awful. Either way, we're right on board with the Jardier community team. Now getting past the 72 of Butterworth, rolling into the chase. Got the inside line in the Ren Walton Esports car. GTWR RAG Academy also on the rear enders. That is Herbeniau. But either way, Machkovsky getting up into what is now 14th. Position, so picked up one. A few cars have already done their pit lane sequence, and now this will add to the list. Machkovsky down onto pit lane. Of course, Gobi also there. The pole sitter, the 49 Grip Packs engineering car, the 995 Unicorns of Love. Renwell on Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition car into pit lane for the final time this season. Yaroslav Honzik Duradis both been into the pit lane, as well as that 111 and Chris Yvette in the race work car that's now in 23rd after issues for Sasha Glatter earlier on in the race.
Yeah, they involved very much in all of the battling going on a little bit earlier on, but has now coming to pit lane. A little bit to an aerial shot here. Don't often get to see Bathurst at night, not even in real life, I suppose. You don't see it very often in the 12 hour. We'll do this year as it comes up this weekend, maybe. It's not often we get to see driving at or racing at Bathurst in the night, but here we are. It's providing a new challenge for everybody, as if this race hasn't been challenging enough for these guys. It's been a very, very difficult one for everyone, but now the gaps, especially at the front of the field, are starting to stretch out a little bit. 5 seconds, I believe, for Murdasov. Hassini's got 4 seconds. Malinowski's got 8, but that won't save him from being overtaken by these two in the pit stop cycle because of his penalty, of course.
I mean, they did always typically start the Bathurst 12 hour at night, like it was for the first 45 minutes at night. Yeah, it's not really like a night stint, really, because it's like not even one actual stint on the track. But still, that's the only real bit of actual night racing that you get around here. Like you said, who knows what we'll see when we see the 12 hours. It will be winter for them down under, which is I can't get over that. Like, still, the world mind-boggling. I'm a simple man that gets boggled by simple things. Either way, this battle might boggle me as Butterworth and Herbeniau. Whoa, that was a big slide from Butterworth.
Yeah, a very big slide, and never, to be fair, I know the bumps at the chase there are quite big, but I've never seen them throw a car completely into a 360 immediately. That was almost impressive. Obviously not good for the Ferrari, because they've dropped a couple of places and might well be in the pit lane after that. That was so out of the blue as well. They just span around almost as if someone pressed a button there, but into the pit lane, understandably. And they'll be glad to get out of the car now, but Butterwork after that spin.
The Volante car's been in pit lane. The Dolkin Community car's been in pit lane. Obviously, as you say, Butterwork and the Ren Welton esports car is in pit lane as well. Dara McCormack then is promoted up into 5th position, now chasing down Scher in the Primeers car. Considering that car has been in the barrier, by the way, again, still very impressive. I know it's not actually in 5th place. Obviously, you've got the pit lane sequence to take into account as well. But either way, to say that that car is even remotely running inside the top 10, inside the top 5, maybe battling for a podium or something maddening later on in this race, that is some drive from the kid.
It really is. It's nothing short of astonishing, really. And the fact that he has been probably the car in this race doing the most overtaking out of everybody, but he has not got a penalty in this race at all. He's done it very cleanly as well, and has even been involved in an incident himself. So this Williams eSport car doing a really good job. Going to have to hand over the car though to Van der Velde, and it just make you wonder, does it, about what could have been for them, because obviously we know that the 42 team are not having a good day. Taking them out of the equation, they only came into today 11 points behind Yas Heat. They could very much have been up there without the earlier power cut for McCormack.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you got to end the season on a high, regardless of issues. Always that final race. For some reason, it just, regardless, it means more. It always means more. You know, the opportunity to carry momentum onto the next championship and all of that. Is so much more important. Valentin Barrier, though, trying to get past Durkop, 15th position on the road at the moment. They'll obviously promoted a few. The 91 Racework car, though, receiving a penalty for contact with the number 42 Simware.Pro car earlier on in the race. I think that might have, well, with it being lap 6, it was definitely Sasha Glatter behind the wheel at the time. Of course, Chris Evert's the one that's going to be dished out that penalty when they hit the checkered flag.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at the minute. A lot of penalties flying about, and all this kind of stuff. As Barrier, another team I have to say that might be wondering what could have been. 44 team down the inside into the chase. Oh my word, 2 very big cars trying to fit themselves through a small gap there, but it looks like the Ren Velton car is just about going to hold on there for Turkov. That was a nice bit of defence. Yeah, as I said, Barrier there will also be wondering what could have been. They came into today the 5th position. Poor race 1 for them though.
Well, only a couple of minutes left in the pit lane sequence, 2 minutes and 50 as this group cross the line. Obviously, our race leaders are far ahead of that as they're completing yet more laps. You can see the 919 coming down the backstretch into the chase now at the top of your track map as Robbie Stapleford takes over the BMW G2 eSports car over Isaac Price. And let's see where they are running. 15th spot as they depart pit lane, but they've got battles ahead. Konstantianis, Dimitrov, Herbignan, all in this little group as they hit. Actually, it's not even. It's Valentin Barrier, Durkop, and the like. So I'll go back on that one immediately. But either way, the battling directly ahead, pretty tight. As there is even contact. TF Racing car, Ren Welton getting into a bit of contact, and Robbie Stapleford slots the gap like it's a Sainsbury's car park, and bang, up in a 12th.
That was unbelievable. He would not have done that if he was in the situation. If he wasn't in the situation he's in, should I say? Because he needs every point he can get. He needs every position that he can get, and he was willing to do anything there to get them. There was barely a BMW width that kind of gap down the left-hand side there, but he found it. George Agis back to the pit lane now. He's out of the race by the looks of things. But what a strange incident that was, and what a great bit of driving that was from Stapleford to gain 3 places in one move.
Again, that is just, I mean, that was brave, because that could have ended very badly. But again, what do they have to lose right now? So they will throw every single little thing at this to see what they can potentially gather. And yeah, I would not have gone for that myself. I'm not that brave. But that is why, again, as we always say, we're in the commentary booth and they are in the cars.
I don't think a lot of drivers would have been brave enough to go for that either, because that was outrageously small gap to get himself through. They've managed to get themselves ahead of the 75 as well, which is important because Isaac Price was having trouble getting through on this car a little bit earlier on, although now Jaroslav Honzik is in the car. He's giving Stapleford a very hard time coming through the final corner. I would argue at this stage it was almost better for Honzik to stay behind for now. And when the pit stop window closes and everybody comes out in their positions that they should be in, then they can start the fight. But for now, they are hurting each other by doing this.
Well, that'll be Harteveld leaving the pit lane after taking over the car from Herbie now, but I am 100% with you. If I was Jaroslav Honzik, play the long game, but he's obviously got viewers to entertain as well himself, so I'm sure he'll be on the attack. As side by side in the background, Dirkop and Valentin Barriere going side by side. Barriere is on the inside and is indeed through on Dirkop, who's out wide towards the barrier, and obviously you've got the TF racing car just behind that, also attacking for the position, as Hosseini and Malinovsky are both in the pit lane. Malinovsky's stop, though, is going to be 10 seconds longer, courtesy of that penalty.
Yeah, I think he might well still come out in 4th place, though. He's going to lose that place to Zolobov, to go to 3rd. I don't think Van der Velde is going to get there. As a scrape on the wall there for Willem van Oomen, by the looks of things. Dirkop was side by side with him earlier, I think. And is that Harteveld going slowly? Is it? It's a Mercedes. Could be a lap Mercedes. Up front here, it's hard to know, hard to see now, but yeah, it's and there's cars everywhere. But we'll see where Malinovsky comes out. He's in the pit lane at the moment and has now served his penalty.
That is the GTW R8G Academy Mercedes there going through shot, so just ahead of the Aston Martin of Van Oomen. So that is indeed for position, what would be 10th position as Harteveld drops back now. So that is very much legitimate between the two. There's a bit of side-by-side there as Van Oomen does go through. This is back up with Tinko van der Velde, 4th position at the moment. There's a bit of battling in the background, but where does Tinko van der Velde go? Tinko van der Velde side-by-side, but he is going to get up onto the podium at the moment. He is now ahead of the Yas Heat car. I mean, this is going to be bold stuff.
Yeah, what a drive this has been from Williams Esports and McCormack in that first stint there. Outrageously good to get himself onto the podium here. Malinovsky has done a pretty good job himself to actually get ahead of those two McLarens. In the end, that 10-second penalty has actually only cost him that one place to Williams Esports. A couple of laps before he pitted, it did look like he was going to drop behind those two McLarens and involved in quite a mighty scrap between the three of them. But he's avoided that now, as long as we can get Van der Velde up to as long as we get Statsenko up to speed quickly here, he won't have to fight those two McLarens, because the Mercedes power and the strength of the Mercedes should just come to the fore over the next few moments.
I mean, there's been some valiant drives in this final race of the season. Of course, you've got to think of the 62 and its rise back up the order. But I mean, the 919 have been fantastic so far through this race. They've got to worry about the 221 that is kind of just sitting there, 3.8 seconds back. The R8G car that's looking for its first win of the season, looking to make it 10 from 10. And then, of course, we've got this car, Tinko van der Velde, 3rd spot at the moment. I mean, what a drive it's been so far from van der Velde and his teammate Dara McCormack. They've been into the barrier, they've been tapped off, they've started from 20th, and they are here to play. They're here to mean business. They are here to keep Statsenko at bay as Statsenko dives down the inside.
Yeah, Statsenko does not need to get dragged into this now. First of all, battling with Van der Velde would bring the two McLarens into play, which he really doesn't want, because that it sends the unpredictability scale off the scale. But second of all, he doesn't really need to overtake this car, really. He could just stick in behind. Let's not actually fight this one out, because we're in the lead of the championship at the minute. We don't need these points. We can still win from 4th quite without problems. So I would be staying behind if I was Statsenko at the moment. But it does look like he would rather finish this final race on the podium.
Either way, looking again to remind everyone of the points standings. BMW G2 Esports coming into this race are your championship leaders, 214 points, 2 points back from them is Simware.pro by Vides, the number 42, which I think you can classify as pretty much done based on the fact that they are 18th. And again, as you pointed out, this round won't be their drop rounds, courtesy of actually just scoring enough points to beat their previous drop round. Then the Yas Heat Pirelli car, the 211 points, the 449. That is the car that is in 4th spot. That is the car that, if the race finishes as it is, as you've just said, will win the Coach Dave Super Sprint Championship here at Bathurst.
Yeah, and just an interesting little statistic, 9 cars can still mathematically win coming into this race. That's how outrageous it is. 50 points for a race win, of course. That heads it all the way down to the John Deere Community 44 car that could even still win from here. But yeah, it's very unlikely that anybody outside the top 3 will, especially with the performance of Yas Heat in this race so far.
Robbie Stapleford doing his best Scotty McLaughlin impression there, going through McPhillamy Park, dropping 2 wheels on the dirt on the right hand side as he's really hammering this BMW M4 over the top over and over again. Got 5.4 seconds to go and catch the Clash racing car of David Patil that sat in 9th position. Jadwatt directly ahead of that. Our race leader though, the 919 SMP racing car, leading by around about 3-4 seconds. I mean, they're looking strong. They're looking to become the first and only 2-time race winner in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. But who is going to join them on the podium? R8G looked like an absolute certainty. The 3rd spot, though, is wide open. Tinko van der Velde and Stutsenko are really battling out over this 3rd spot. About 1.8 seconds back is Dimitrov in the number 70 Volante car, but that car does have a 10-second time penalty, so really doesn't factor into this battle at all.
Not particularly, and is probably going to drop down to 7th place as well after that penalty is applied after the race. Of course, Durkov has got a 10-second penalty as well that's going to drop him probably down to 18th, I'm afraid, for Van Velten. It's disappointing because they were in the top 10 not so long ago with some more 10-second penalties come through. 15 seconds for the 8 car and another 10 for the 70, which we've just talked about there. So, yeah, it's a lot of penalties here in this race, but as we talked about, it's reverse grid racing and these things tend to happen.
I've been told, by the way, to speak, which is a great time to speak of it at night time, about some liveries, particularly the racework car that Sasha Glatter and Severa, which by the way is a very pretty livery. Danny Rambier is telling me that I need to talk about it on the broadcast ever so slightly. So there you go. There is your one and only point on liveries. It is not a good time to talk about it. We are at night time. You can just about see the rear end of some cars only when there's someone right up their rear end. See? Can you see that livery? It is quite pretty. It is the colour is. I really like that orange.
Yeah, it's not a bad livery. Yeah,
no, don't think.
No, well, sorry, I'm just saying my opinion.
Bad.
It's not bad. Yeah, it's not bad. But yeah, it's difficult to see as we see side by side now. Or tried to see with Stutsenko. Oh, it's on the inside line. No. He's gone around. Oh my goodness! This is exactly why I would not have gone for a move if I was Mikhail Stutsenko, because your whole championship can come undone, and it might well just have done.
Where is G2 Esports? Where is G2 Esports in all of this? They're rolling now into... They're just going into the chase now. So they've lost a lot of time. There is Robbie Stapleford. I am 100% with you. Never mind, Robbie Stapleford. Someone's clearly dropped some oil down there by the fact that they're just not keeping to the racetrack. Robbie Stapleford's dropped behind the other Yas Heat car. What is going on here at Bathurst? Stutsenko, I am with you. Ewan, Stutsenko going for that. I don't know why you would take that risk when the championship is, as near as makes no difference, sewn up. You've only got to hang on for 20 minutes. Why do anything like that?
Yeah, you could win a championship by following another car for the next 20 minutes. I mean, it could not be more simple, but Stutsenko wanted that final podium, and he is a racing driver after all, so I suppose it is understandable sort of, but it's still not the right decision in my mind. He should not be going for a move like that, especially not at the chase, although where else are you going to do it, I suppose. But he shouldn't be making a move at that stage. Now all of a sudden, this has got a lot closer. Luckily for him, he had a big margin over Stapleford, and so Stutsenko can now just settle himself back in and drive to the finish, but that could have gone so much worse. He'll be very glad as well that no other cars collected him. He didn't hit the barriers. All he has to do now is get himself back into that rhythm, and then the championship is his. But getting a rhythm around here is not easy to re-find, especially after a moment that he has just had.
I mean, it would have taken a bit of life out of the tyres as well, but it shouldn't be the biggest deal. We've just seen a penalty come through, and you can see it there on your timer. Tinko van der Velde, the Williams Esports car, a 15-second time penalty at the end of the race.
Not entirely sure what it's for. I think it's car 77 apparently. Not entirely sure. We're hearing it was on pit entry, which is weird. But we didn't see that, and yeah, there must have been some damage for the 77 because I seem to remember they were in that battle for fourth, but not anymore, no longer. So yeah, 15-second penalty for Williams, and it's a fairly severe one, possibly the most severe we've seen all day.
I don't recall us seeing a drive-through. We did have a 15-second time penalty in the previous race. We have had a drive-through in the previous race. Oh yeah, no, it's actually in this race. Sorry, it was for Patrick Nodge in the I can't remember, GT Omega car, the number 7 Aston Martin. We're getting a word now here. No further action on the incident between Tinko van der Velde and Mikhail Stutsenko as well. The number 80 in the 449 that sent Stutsenko down the order. Or actually, maybe that's not 100% the case. But either way, race controller looking into a fair few things right now. But for considering that was on pit lane entry, that means that Dara McCormack had a fantastic stint, ending very badly. This is on board with Dara McCormack. This is over that awkward chicane, slowing down into pit lane. I mean, that's straight into the rear end. It's a bit harsh for a 15-second time penalty, but you know, the rules are the rules.
Depends if it's harsh depending on what actually happened to the 77. Did they get any damage? Did they actually speed in the pit lane because of that? Because if either of those things are true, then 15 seconds is not unreasonable, I would have said. But if indeed it was literally just that, and they both carried on with their day, then probably is a bit harsh. But I'm suspecting, by the fact that we do see a 15-second penalty, that there is something more to that the 77 is either still feeling the effects of now, or was during that pit stop. So yeah, not entirely sure. But that penalty at the moment, I reckon, would actually, ironically, drop him back behind Stutsenko all over again, and maybe even the likes of Honzik and Stapleford as well.
Well, right now, it is looking on once again to remind you, with 15 minutes left to go, or less than, much less than, in this championship here in our finale at Bathurst. The championship would go to Stutsenko in the 449 Yas Heat Richard Mille car that is present, or Yas Heat Pirelli car, I always forget which way round they are. The Yas Heat Pirelli car in the 449, that is where the title would go now, at the moment. There is a fair few seconds for him backwards towards Robbie Stapleford, the closest championship rival in the BMW G2 Esports. But right now, they have the cards. They only need to hang on for another 13 minutes and 15 seconds.
And at the moment, the BMW needs to finish 8th. If they were to overtake the 3 cars in front of them, then they would be champions. So at the moment, the gap is 5 points if the race were to end as it is right now. Yas Heat would win by 5 points. 2 points of position up to 8th. So that you do the maths, they would win by 1 point. But they've got to get there first. They've got to get within that window. And it doesn't look like they're going to. Robbie Stapleford's even struggling to cling on to the back of Jaroslav Honzik at the moment. 1.3 seconds is the gap. And despite the fact Honzik is leaving that BMW behind, he's not really making inroads into that battle between the 777 and Patil, which is going on at the moment for 8th position. So the stars really do need to align for BMW G2 Esports, and time is really running out for them to do so.
I don't think it's going to happen. I just do not think it's going to happen now for BMW G2 Esports. The issue they had earlier has just cost them. Again, we don't know exactly what happened there between Isaac Price in the, I think it was the Carbon SimSport car, back on lap 1, the very opening lap of the race, going through Quarry Bend. The two came together, and the BMW G2 Esports car was left in the barrier on the right-hand side, stationary, had to get back going again, lost a whole heap of time. They've done a fantastic job to even get close to the top 10 after issues like that. But with that one swift move, that was their title hopes squashed a fair amount.
Yeah, really, yeah, not finished, I suppose, but certainly diminished at that stage. So yeah, it's been a very, very not a championship finale that like you often see. Normally you've got the 3 contenders, and quite often they'd finish 1, 2 and 3, or all 3 in the top 5, because obviously they've been up front all season. But the Coach Dave Super Sprint is so kind of irregular almost, in the way that there's different cars up towards the front every single race, that it's created this strange situation where none of the championship contenders are going to finish inside the top 5, and that the championship leader hasn't finished inside the top 10 all day.
Well, there is Bathurst Esports trying to keep hold of 19th position over that race work, that lovely orange McLaren. They're sat in 20th. That's just trying to attack, but Sever also has a 5-second time penalty to serve at the end of the race. They've also got to worry about Kaush rather joining the battle on the rear end in that quite pink Porsche that is just jumping. I mean, it's so pink that you can still see it at night time, which just really shows.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's one way to make your car stand out. You're not going to lose that in the melee of a first lap. But we have unfortunately seen them involved in a few things. Remember, I think it was at race 1, they were just over the crest.
Never mind.
Off the road for the orange McLaren, and they dropped down to 21st. I would definitely have to put that one on the Bentley, I'm afraid.
100%. I mean, you've just squeezed the car straight off the road. There was not a car width there.
Straight.
Yeah, well, you know me about car contact on the straight. We're going to go back to the Mitchy Hoy, I think.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
but no, I do agree. It's probably on the Bentley, that one, but just yet another thing for the stewards to look through.
Do you agree on the other one?
Pardon?
Do you agree on the other instant? Yeah, we can have an argument on air in the final 10 minutes of the championship.
We're not going to have an argument about that now. No.
All right, we'll save that. We'll save that one till Sunday night, shall we? Yes. But either way, back on board with the Volante Atatec SimSport car were Vanko Dimitrov. This car, I was going to say it was going to get a podium then, but actually it won't, because it has a 10-second time. It will finish ahead of the Williams Esports car if it carries on this, but it is going to drop back a few spots. It does mean that Jonas Savalainen and the Grippax engineering car, despite the issues that they've had through the opening stint of the race, they will look to grab themselves a podium in this race, which I think would be a fantastic result for the Grippax engineering car. Also, we just had the yellow flags out. It was between this section, between Griffin's Bend and the cutting, and it was for the Carbon SimSport blue car that's running a lap down.
Yes, these two penalties for the third and fourth cars, though, are, as you say, really going to affect things negatively for those. Dimitrov and Van der Velde are both going to drop behind. Statsenko, for example, is going to get top 5. But as you say, Savalainen in that 49 car going to get a very nice podium there in that McLaren. It would be great to see a different car on the podium, not just in terms of manufacture at a circuit where the Mercedes has completely dominated. Oh my goodness, Dimitrov adding insult to injury with a huge smack on the wall.
See, that's why I wasn't talking them up too much, because you can't say it's the commentator's curse who said they weren't going to get a podium. But that was a solid F from Vanko Dimitrov, hard into the barrier. Thankfully, manages to keep going, but will have lost a lot of speed. Savalainen probably should get through with relative ease coming down into the chase, and I don't think it'll be too long before Sven Hetic also gets through. Car off on the right-hand side, that'll be that Carbon SimSport car that has a fair amount of damage, number 25.
It's. I'm surprised Dimitrov is going quite so quickly still, if I'm honest, after that incident. I mean, we saw what happened to Murtasov at the end of race 1, really slowed down towards the last lap. I know that was a front-on crash with another car, so it's not the same at all, but he's still able to keep a decent pace. That 10-second penalty, though, was never going to get a podium, as you say, so this is just adding insult to injury. And he's got 4 more laps to complete. You were right, by the way, we are going to go 1 lap shorter. This race has been a little bit slower, especially in terms of lap times. We've been a little bit slower on this occasion. We're in the mid 02s at the minute, mid to high 02s with the fastest cars, as opposed to being in the high 1s as we were even towards the end of the race in race 1.
Obviously, remember, that is partially down to the fact that they are running the same tyres at this point in the race as they did at the start. There's no tyre switches in race 2, where we do have them in race 1. So that will play its factor in this. Every time they go down to the S's, I'm always like, they're going to crash. Because at night time, when you're looking at it from a TV camera, it does genuinely feel that the rear end is about to drop away as we now ride on board. So we get the track beautifully lit up from what is effectively like 2 very powerful floodlights on the front end of each of these racing cars. It does light a fair amount, but obviously not too much.
You probably liken this to in your road car at home if you turn the full beam on. That's arguably what these lights are like all the time. If not stronger, yeah. But you've got to remember, obviously you don't do that on the road, obviously, because you kill everyone. But it's obviously safer to do that on a racetrack because everyone's going in the same direction. That
You hope.
That makes it not not on the road. Here they are though. Yeah, you'd hope so. And yeah, thankfully it gives you a bit of an idea as to where you're going. Although as we're seeing on these onboard shots, it's not daytime still. They're very, as you say, floodlights almost, but still tricky.
Yeah, no, I remember going to the Nürburgring 24 hours 4 years ago. I went, and it is a GT3 car with its headlights shining straight into your eyes. It hurts. It really is very bright. Obviously, it's not as if you're driving a day, and you don't actually see that much. I mean, kind of what you see from onboard cameras as well in real life. When you see those onboard cameras, they're normally exposing for quite a bit more than what the human eye would be in that kind of scenario. So it looks a lot brighter than it actually is. You really don't see that much from being on board. This is back on the battle for 14th position, Harteveld versus Gerardis, now for 14th, one of the closest battles on the race circuit. As we go side by side, the battle on the right hand side of your screen, that is 6th place. That is Statsenko, who is now ahead of Dimitrov in that damaged Volante McLaren.
Yeah, Statsenko really had his life made very easy for him there, and so it wasn't really dangerous to make his way through like it was arguably on Van der Velde earlier on in this race. So he's up to 6th now and will likely finish in 5th place, if not 4th actually, if Hetic really falls off in these final few laps. But yeah, just to go to that discussion on how difficult it is, I always find as well, unless you've done it yourself, at nighttime racing is very difficult. Like looking on board there, you obviously see the powerful headlights. You're like, well, it doesn't actually look too tricky, but it really is. Following another car, I find following another car really illustrates how difficult it is when you're on your own as well, because you're all of a sudden going a lot faster. Or I always found when I was following someone else at night time, I could go a lot quicker than I could ever do on my own, because it's just quite that bit more difficult to see.
You take different references. You don't, and that kind of sounds weird because obviously the brake marks and stuff is in the same places, etc., etc. When you're. Well, I mean, yeah, from it being... I remember doing my first bit of night driving. I was doing practice for a certain race in the French countryside, I would say it's Le Mans. But I was doing practice for this, and all of my practice was done at night time, and then suddenly, after about 10-15 hours of practice, we were like, let's go and do some laps in the day. And as soon as I did laps in the day, I was like, I can't actually drive this, because my references were completely different. You're not as focused. You can't see. You can almost see too much, as there was a little bit of contact there from the TF racing car, just tapping the rear end of Harteveld into the braking zone at the chase. But yeah, you can almost see too much. Whereas when you're at night time, you've got tunnel vision. You can only see what you need to see, and then probably a bit less than that.
It's all about what you practice with, really. It's almost like they changing them changing the kind of configuration of the chicanes. Like the circuit's roughly the same, but it's slightly different at the same time. So yeah, it is a weird one. As Josef Honzik makes his way down the inside of the 777 McLaren into 9th place he goes, and Stapleton follows him through very cleverly into 10th, with Statsenko still improving on positions hand over fist at the moment. He does need more than this, and he's still not even got this one. Round the outside through the cutting is a brave one, and he's still not quite got it done, I don't think. Still side by side. No, he didn't get through.
Oh, yeah, I mean, good effort. Valentin Barriere is now obviously right on the case as well. I mean, good effort to go around the outside of the cutting to even give that a go. It's a brave move. A little bit wide there. I think all of them were getting closer and closer to the barrier, and there was a bit of a slap on the rear right of Valentin Barriere, just into the wall coming out of Sullivan Park, down the hill through S's. Once again, Robbie Stapleford, 11th spot right now. Championship, just to remind you, as we head on to the final lap of the race and the final lap of the season, if everything finishes as it is, the championship will go the way of the 449 Yaz Heat Pirelli car that Mikhail Statsenko is presently driving in 6th position. Stapleford just not quite getting enough after earlier issues in the race.
Yeah, not quite. Still at this stage, he needs to finish one behind Statsenko to be able to get this championship, and he's too far away surely at this stage. Outside line at the chase is a brave one. Inside line for the actual braking zone, which is the good part, I suppose. And he does get through, a little bit wide, but he should hold on. And there's going to be an almighty fight over the last lap, which is coming up here, with Barrier as well, looking to get through, or he was.
until, as I literally just had yelled in my ear, barrier in the barrier. So it's not just you, ladies and gentlemen, that have to deal with the bad puns from Ewan O'Leary. We also have to deal with them ourselves from Mr. SimGrid himself, Michael Hamlet, who's just absolutely dropped that belter. That is a shame from Valentin Barrier. Either way, down the order, that is a big hit.
Yeah, it was a big hit, I'm afraid. I actually didn't see that because it's so dark. I didn't actually see. But yeah, Barrier certainly was in the wall there, and drops down to 13th. It drops behind Van Omen and so on. So yeah, a shame to see there, because that battle was looking to be very tasty on the final lap. But Stapleford does get inside the top 10. Still, though, won't be enough for him, as Statsenko even knocking on the door of a top 5 just behind this fight for third.
I mean, again, what a frantic race that we have had. At the front of the grid, though, just a couple of corners left to go. The 221's been closing in. It's been attacking. It's been trying to charge. It's been trying to grab itself the race lead. But it's not going to be able to do it because one final corner awaits Oleg Sholobov, who's coming down into the last one now, and for the second time this season, the only team to do it, SMP Racing Esports, are victorious in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. They take it here at Mount Panorama. Nick Hoban comes across the line 1.5 seconds back for RHG Esports, and now we wait and wait and wait. Savalainen's trying to attack for the podium, doesn't need to though, because the positions will switch. Tinko van der Velde will have 15 seconds to serve at the end of this race, and he'll drop right back behind the Gripax Engineering. But you want to do it on circuit, trying to get it done at the final corner, going for the up and under, down towards the line is obviously going to be the Williams Esports that take it over the line. But Savalainen and Gripax Engineering will be on the podium, but behind that, Stetsenko has crossed the line, and the 449, as far as our maths is aware, should be the champions.
They should indeed, and it's confirmed there with Patil and Honzik coming over the line. Only 93 thousandths between them, but it should be confirmed there. Stapleford didn't quite do enough in that BMW car, excuse me. I mean, Isaac Price's little incident out of the cutting on the very first lap really undid everything for them. Without that, they showed the pace and the poise through traffic. That means they could well have gotten that championship, because in the end, Statsenko, obviously with that spin, in the end they only needed to finish one position behind him, and that was certainly very possible without that early spin. But this season has been a whole host of what if for everybody. Everybody has had a bad round, if not more than one, on their way to the end of this championship. It's just been so topsy-turvy in the Coach Dave Super Sprint. It's been great entertainment, and it's a shame to see that it has come to an end, but worthy champions indeed in Statsenko and Malinowski as well.
Again, what a season. What a season we've had. What a brilliant championship from start to finish. It's been breathtaking. I agree with you. Worthy champions. We'll hold on until we get the provisional results, and we'll try and grab some interviews, not only from our race winners, but also from our provisional champions as well, because I'd love to hear what they think. I'd love to hear what Statsenko thinks about that final risky moment when battling with Tinko van der Velde down into the chase, whether he thought that was the champion going to be gone at that point. Again, absolutely superb. Again, in our red, just to confirm as well, the provisional championship winners is the Yaz Heat Pirelli 449, as we've said, as we kind of worked out, as your maths alluded to, and it would be by 5 points over the BMW G2 Esports car, which is a bit rough for them after issues earlier on the race. They did a fantastic job to respond to the top 10, but it wasn't enough.
No, I'm afraid it wasn't enough, and then we ruined that mistake that, well, we're yet to finally decipher whether it was a mistake or whether they were wrongly put into the wall, but I believe, yeah, a mistake really that has put them down, and don't want to say handed it to Yas Heat, because they still have a lot to do, but yeah, they did in the end have an easier run of it than they otherwise might. I mean, how often do you see the third place team in the championship, after 9 races, third place team come through to win it? Yeah, not very often indeed. It's been a remarkable season between those three especially. Very topsy-turvy, as I mentioned, but very enjoyable as well, with unpredictability is obviously often the entertainment in these championships, so we've had plenty of that here.
But when we kind of think of the unpredictability and the inconsistency of the championship from a lot of our rivals, looking at the standings, the Yaz Heat Pirelli car, and it's kind of where the rightful champions really are. The reason being is that they've had top 10s in every single race this season, with the exception of one, and that was the first race at Barcelona. Every other race was finished inside the top 10. And so with that, I think it's probably about time that we would catch up with our provisional champions, who are sat by the way, so I don't really want to interrupt just in case they're chatting, because I'm pretty sure they'll be over the moon with each other and very happy with the position that they have joined the round in. But let's drag them in to have a quick chat with the Yaz Heat Pirelli car. Mikhail Stutsenko is alongside, along with, of course, Malinovsky. We'll catch up with both of them in a minute, but I want to go to Stutsenko very quickly to ask the main question. Late on in the race, things were a little bit crazy there for you. A little bit of a battle with the Williams eSports car. Bit of side-by-side, bit of contact, bit of a spin at that point. Was your heart in your mouth? Were you kind of thinking that this might be it for the championship?
I wasn't worrying too much, because we were just needed to be one position ahead of BMW, I think, or like to have a car between us. So I just laughed about it mostly and just kept the car on the track for the rest of the race.
You've been one of the most consistent teams over the championship when everyone else has struggled to find consistency. How have you found the balance to stay in the top 10 all the time, basically?
I mean, it's just mostly... Oh, who's supposed to answer?
Either way. I mean, I was going to aim that one towards you to say. But you know what? I'm going to open it up. I want both of you to answer, each with your own little bit.
Okay, Maciej, go first.
Okay, I can start. I actually don't think we were consistent at all. It's just happened that we kind of got results that altogether gave us the most amount of points over a season. But nobody was consistent. Even we were not having consistent results. We had really bad luck at Barcelona. We basically were last in one of the races because of disconnection. Sometimes when we were having a good race, also at Zandvoort we got spun. At Brands Hatch we got a penalty and incident with BMW, and I actually spun a BMW. It was fully my fault. So, but even though it was like that, or up and down all the time, it was like that for everyone. And it just happens that everyone else in that Frontic Championship had even more of moments like that. It was just crazy season. And
again, I'll go back to Mikhail and then I'll go back.
Yeah.
We'll go that way. Mikhail, for a champion that's been so up and downs, talk us of some of the highs and some of the lows that you've had racing it.
I can't actually. I don't know what to say really. I can talk about consistency point. That's what I can talk about. So I think in terms of consistency for us, it was just about not going for very, very risky overtakes mostly. Like a lot of the teams, a lot of the times just lost on crashing and just getting penalties. Like I think we were one of the most cleanest teams on penalties in the championship.
And kind of, I want to ask, coming into Bathurst, it's such a difficult circuit, isn't it? And to have a championship finale around here kind of gets your heart racing, and for the pair of you, it's been tricky. I asked one to you, Malinovsky. When you come to a track like this, qualifying is so important. How do you kind of prepare for something like that and get your mindset into the qualifying session right and kind of balance yourself?
Well, I wasn't doing the quality with the feeling. You're totally right. It is all about quality for race one. You have to get your grid spot as high up as possible to avoid everything else that will happen behind you, as it happened during that race that didn't happen, right? Where everyone behind us, literally like that was 20 centimeters behind us, the whole field just disappeared. So it was important on that example to be right ahead of that. So that I just fully trusted Misha all this season that he was capable of doing it in quali, just keeping calm and getting a decent position. And then Misha pointed out well that okay, maybe we weren't as consistent as I would like it to be, but we definitely were staying out of trouble and we're trying to stay clean. And it's the same for Bathurst. Even if you don't have good starting position, you can try to be clever about what's happening around you. Even if you're not the one going for an overtake, you can see what other car are doing around you, how they're positioning. You can position yourself in a way that maybe you're not gonna push other cars into doing certain decisions, and just trying to keep everything around you clean and avoid dangerous situation. And then your time will come, and it certainly did for us. I'm just so tired because this week I have COVID, so it's only the second day I'm out of bed this week. So the preparation that you asked about, it was absolutely non-existent for me. So fortunately, Misha prepared a really nice car, so it was safe and enjoyable to drive. And we managed to bring it home. And for me, second time in a row in the Sprint Cup.
And I think then for all of us here, for one, hope you recover quite soon, because we definitely want to see you out on the racetrack and stuff, because you definitely deserve it. Congratulations. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. For one, go and rest. And for two, go and party a little bit and have a little bit of fun, at least, after a very successful championship. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm definitely happy. I'm sure Misha is delighted as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Wow, what a championship. Ewan, I'll bring you back in here for a second once more. What a season they had.
Yeah, what a season that we've had as well, watching. It's been great. It has been very unpredictable, as we said throughout. It's been, people have been here and there and whatever, but in the end, they were able to stay consistent enough. As you mentioned, that it's a good statistic, only once finishing outside of the top 10, and that is exactly the reason why they have ended up winning. For all the unpredictability going on around them, they were able to prevail. Calm heads prevailed in the end. I mean, even they had a problem in that final race. But it wasn't enough to dethrone them, and so champions at the end of the season. It's great to see, and it's been how enjoyable it has been, especially these final two races with the championship finale here. It's been very enjoyable.
You heard all the issues that they were having throughout the season. Shows the form that they have. We'll grab one more interview, this time with Ivan Shermatinsky from the SMP Motorsports camp. And for the 919, we've already caught up with you a bit earlier on in the season after the victory back in Barcelona. With this being a race victory here at Bathurst, now being the only team that has won two races with the same car over the season. Talk us about how that means for the team.
Good evening. So overall, I think it's quite a good result. Also, we definitely hoped for more, but there was a couple of really bad rounds for us. For example, the first one at Brands Hatch, the second one at Zandvoort. After that, it was much better. And we could possibly score in top 3 overall. But the second race at Imola didn't go too well. We finished 18, I think, with a drive-through. So it kind of ruined our chances for the top 3 championship fight, as we saw that before this one last round. So we just had to give everything today. And I think we did, almost. because the first race was not as good as we hoped for. We lacked some pace, unfortunately, and I think 3 or 4 laps before the end of the first race, we had a very unfortunate contact with the left car, with the back marker, and we lost another 4 positions because of that. And I think if not for this incident, we would probably be top 5 overall instead of top 7. But I mean, with how the first 2 rounds were, I think it's quite a good result, and team is happy for sure.
I remember the victory at Barcelona being sort of a bit not out of nowhere, because obviously it was a top 10 reverse, and we know that the team has a lot of pace, but considering that rough start to the season, it was it seemed like a massive push for the team. Came back in Imola with such a good result as well, with a second place in the first race, and obviously the second race didn't go too much to plan. So plenty of highs, plenty of lows through the season. Does this style of racing go well with the team? The idea of it being a sprint racing but with driver swaps as well, it seems like a lot of fun at least.
Yeah, me personally, I do really like the way the season is organized, the way how the team swaps are, the driver swaps, and the overall 2 races system. I think it's quite different from what we are used to, and I do enjoy it quite a lot. Yeah, I think it's a really good idea to come up with.
Where do we get to see you lads out on track next?
Sorry?
Where do we get to see you guys out on track next? What championship? Whereabouts?
I think we're going to be driving Asro Esports Endurance the next weekend, I believe. I don't think we have anything before that. So yeah, it should be Asro and then CDA 1000, I guess.
Well, best of luck, and we will see you for those.
Yeah, thank you, Lewis. Have a good night.
Well, congratulations to SMP, not only for the victory in this, but for a great season. The only team with 2 victories to their name, and obviously congratulations to the Yasheet Pirelli team. A great season, but it is over. Ewan, I mean, you only joined us for a few rounds. I mean, I only joined for a few rounds. David Christie enjoyed. We're all slackers here in the company. But it's been a great season. I think we can all sit back and have said that it's been, at the bare minimum, very entertaining.
It has been very entertaining indeed, and we got to see our great championship fight, as we mentioned, towards the end. Only 5 points in it between 1 and 2 by the end of the season. Just a mark of a great championship. Look forward to the next kind of sprinty kind of cup thing going on at the SimGrid, because it's going to be great. A lot of endurance things obviously coming up with, as I haven't just mentioned there, the Coach Dave Academy 1000 series continuing. 6 Hours of Le Mans coming up in 2 weeks' time, 2.5 weeks or so. More endurance stuff to look forward to over the next few weeks here at the SimGrid, but I'm sure the next sprinty kind of cup thing will be just as exciting as this has been, because it's been thoroughly enjoyable.
Well, whilst we're speaking of other things upcoming, remember again, Coach Dave Time Attack. Keep it in your schedules, because this one is going to be thrilling. 3 rounds of competition. We've already done the first. We've already completed Suzuka. We do have Spa and the Nürburgring to complete as well. Obviously, Spa ends pretty soon. It's about the fastest laps over 3 qualifying rounds to get you into the broadcasted finale, which we'll be bringing you on the 26th of May at a publicly voted circuit. Now, the GT3s are open. No more requirement to take on the Audi R8 Evo. You can go and take whatever car you want, and it is free to enter to get yourselves into the chance of winning your fair share from a $1,000 prize pool. It's not the only bit of racing, though, that we've got left in May as well, because, again, announced early today, Coach Dave presents the 6 Hours of Le Mans broadcasted event here at the SimGrid, as we'll go racing on iRacing at the legendary Circuit de la Sarthe. You can pick 2 to 6 drivers for your team. Again, 6 is far too many for me, but 3 is right in that sweet spot. Get out there in an LMP2 or a GT3 for a fantastic afternoon/evenings racing that we'll be bringing you all of the action of. And again, don't have a poster for this one, but the Coach Dave 1000 is back on June the 4th. We missed out May. We've done 2 rounds. We've already ticked off Barcelona and already ticked off Imola, but the Nürburgring 1000 6 hours of racing will be there on June the 4th. To catch all of that content, you can join us here at the SimGrid. And for all of your racing needs, not just on ACC, you can head over to Coach Dave Academy for all of your assistance, whether it's setups or guides or whatever you need. You can head over there and it'll help you out on ACC and of course on iRacing as well. From myself, Lewis McGlade, from Ewan O'Leary, from all of us here at the SimGrid, we will wish you all the very best and give you a very warm goodbye.
We'll be right back.